Chapter 4:13. After obtaining the dragon's soul true body, Mo Shur remained calm and collected as he continued to search the area. At this moment, a Skygold sect disciple discovered a fist-sized ball-shaped object on the ground. More than half of it had sunk into the ground. Although it was covered in a thick layer of dust, it still looked shiny. He was delighted. He had found a treasure. He immediately rushed over and picked it up. But after picking it up, he realized that it was just a shard. It was supposed to be a ball-shaped object. Now only 1/3 of it was left. No matter how good an object was, it was worthless when it was broken into pieces. He took a closer look at it and passed it to the spiritual psyche master. The spiritual psyche master examined it carefully for a while but didn't find anything. He shook his head and said, "It's useless." The Skygold sect disciple smiled bitterly and cursed. "Damn it!" He threw the shard to the side. It was about to hit the wall. However, at this moment, a figure appeared and caught the item. It was none other than Mo Shur. He caught the item and was secretly delighted. When the Skygold sect disciple checked it, he had used his dragon consciousness to check it. The composition of this object was exactly the same as the Dragon Ball shard he had obtained before. Obviously, it was also a Dragon Ball shard. These people didn't know what it was and threw it away like trash. It was his now. Thinking of this, he kept the Dragon Ball shard. The Skygold sect disciple and the level 1 spiritual psyche master were both shocked when they saw Mo Shur's action. Did they make a mistake? Both of them were secretly regretting it. Then, they thought, how could something in the underground dragon cave be ordinary? They were the ones who had found it, but they had thrown it away like trash. This kid had taken advantage of them. They were really too stupid. But they didn't want to admit that they were too stupid. They looked around and didn't see any other disciples. They pretended that nothing had happened. Most importantly, they didn't know what it was. They didn't want to fall out with someone who was related to Han Jianxing over an unknown object. Mo Shur kept the Dragon Ball shard and continued to search around. Hopefully, he could find another Dragon Ball fragment. At that time, the 3 Dragon Ball fragments would be able to form a complete Dragon Ball. However, they didn't find anything useful in the underground dragon cavern. This caused everyone to feel slightly disappointed. Xiao Chun found 2 swords in such a huge underground dragon cave. He felt somewhat dissatisfied. However, Mo Shur was already quite satisfied. 1 Dragon Ball fragment was already a great harvest. Not to mention, the spirit-engulfing beast had devoured so many dragon spirits. According to Mo Shur's knowledge, after the spirit-engulfing beast devoured the dragon spirits, it would split them into 2 parts. Part of it was energy for him to absorb. The other part was the dragon will, which was stored in the space within its body. If he could find a way to make it spit out all the dragon senses it had devoured, he might be able to raise his dragon senses by 2 or even 3 levels. This was also one of Mo Shur's great gains. At this point, there was nothing of value to be found here. However, on the walls of this huge cave, there were hundreds and thousands of holes with diameters of about 5 meters. It was not a small task to check all the hundreds and thousands of holes. These disciples of the Heavenly Gold Trisect were planning to use their advantage in numbers to turn this place upside down. However, Mo Shur didn't have such patience. There were a total of 4 districts in the ancient dragon battlefield, and each district wasn't small. If they had to turn every place upside down, they would never be able to search this place for the rest of their lives. Therefore, Mo Shur decided to leave this place temporarily. At most, he would wait for these people to finish searching this place and then plunder their memories to see if there was anything good. If there wasn't, then so be it. If there was, then he would just snatch it. Therefore, Mo Shur said to the leader of the group, "Now that most of the dragon spirits in this cave have been devoured, if you want to continue searching this cave, then continue. I have other things to do, so I'll take my leave first." Hearing this, the Heavenly Gold sect disciples couldn't stop him. They could only bid farewell to Mo Shur. After that, they continued searching here while Mo Shur led the spirit-engulfing beast out of the cave. At the same time, at the entrance of the cave, among those people, the multifunction watches of over 70 Heavenly Gold sect disciples rang at the same time. They had received a video message. They all opened the video message. It was the great elder of the Heavenly Gold Sect. The great elder of the Heavenly Gold Sect was furious. All Heavenly Gold Sect disciples, listen up. Our Heavenly Gold Sect disciple, Bufan, has been killed and the biggest suspect has been identified. It's this person. As he spoke, a person's portrait appeared beside him. It was Mosher. The great elder of the Heavenly Gold Sect said, "This person's name is Mosher. If you see him, report immediately and capture him. Wait for me to come and deal with him." The Heavenly Gold Sect disciples at the entrance of the cave were all stunned when they saw Mosher's portrait. He looks like him. Yes, he does look like him. Could it be the same person? I think it's possible. These people had only seen Mosher once and weren't sure. Why don't we report this to the great elder? A disciple suggested. Another disciple immediately retorted, "Are you stupid? We're not sure if it's him. If it's him, it'll be good. If it's not him, the great elder is angry now. If we report it rashly, won't we be asking for trouble?" You're right. It's a pity that we didn't record his image just now. Otherwise, we'll know if it's him. There's no signal in the catacombs. Those disciples probably haven't received the great elder's message. When that guy comes up, we'll take a few more photos of him and send them to the great elder so that he can identify him himself. That's right. If it's really that guy, we'll have provided an important clue and have made a contribution. If it's not him, then it's the great elder's own fault. He can't blame us. After the discussion, everyone calmly waited for Mosher to come up. About 5 minutes later, a figure suddenly appeared at the entrance of the cave. It was none other than Mosher. Everyone exchanged glances when they saw Mosher's elusive footwork. It meant that they shouldn't act rashly. The remaining 100 or so Heavenly Wood Sect and Heavenly Water Sect disciples were on the same side as the Heavenly Gold Sect disciples. They were all secretly on guard but didn't act rashly. Chapter 4:14. The Heavenly Gold Sect disciples exchanged glances. How could they hide their little actions from the level 7 Long Nyen Shur Mosher? He immediately plundered the memories of one of them and quickly knew what they were thinking. It turned out that these people were already suspecting that he had killed Bufan. Since that was the case, there was no need for him to pretend anymore. Thinking of this, Mosher looked around at the 200 Heavenly Gold Trisect disciples around him. He sneered, "Since you want to kill me, I'm sorry." As he spoke, he used his mind. The next moment, 100-meter-tall and 500-meter-long dragon shadow appeared behind him. Although it was just a shadow, its scales were distinct, and its eyes and nose were clear. It was as lifelike as a real dragon. The disciples of the Celestial Gold Trisect turned pale with fright. No matter how many strange things they had experienced in the ancient dragon battlefield, they were not as shocked as seeing a 100-meter-long dragon shadow in front of them. In front of this huge creature, they seemed so small and weak. They were so weak that they could not even withstand a single blow. Moreover, this huge creature was terrifying not only because of its size, but also because of the domineering aura it emitted. Under this domineering aura, even the strongest level 7 Desolate Hunter among them did not dare to move. This was the strength of the Dragon Soul True Body. With Mosher's current Dragon Soul True Body, perhaps only Desolate Hunters above level 8 could barely withstand it. Desolate Hunters below level 8 did not even have the thought of running away. There was only one word left: fear. Since this guy was left here to be slaughtered, Mosher naturally would not be polite. His right arm turned into a dragon claw. This time it was not a skill. It was a real dragon claw. The next moment, the dragon claw swept out. Whoosh! An invisible force instantly flew towards the 200 people. Rip! There was a series of ripping sounds. These people did not have any intention of resisting at all. Under the tearing of the invisible force, these people were directly torn into pieces. They turned into a rain of blood that shone with a wine-red luster under the sunlight. At the same time, in Mosher's mind, a number had already appeared. Kill points: 185-1000. Since Mosher had already started killing, he naturally would not miss out on anything. He teleported to the underground cavern. He used his telekinesis to investigate and found all the heavenly gold trisect disciples in the underground cavern. Then he killed them all. In his mind, the kill points increased again. Frowny face kill points. 211-1000. In just a few seconds, the kill points had increased over 200. At this rate, it would not take long for it to evolve. The bloodthirsty demonic dragon's advancement was truly monstrous. Moreover, its evolution did not really matter was the level of its enemies. As long as you kill, you to kill would be counted over was kills to kill. In that case, there was no need for Mo Sure to deal with those level 10 desolate hunters. Not only were level 10 desolate hunters strong, but they were also few in number. After killing these people, he took the 2 swords that they had obtained. Although he did not need them, it was not a bad choice to give them to his subordinates. Mo Sure returned to the ground and withdrew his dragon soul true body. The spirit-engulfing beast that had been following Mo Sure was also quite frightened. It only heaved a sigh of relief when Mo Sure withdrew his dragon soul true body. It had a new understanding of this human in its heart. Previously, it only felt that this human was a little mysterious, but it did not feel that he was too special. Therefore, it thought that if there was a chance, it would run away. It even wanted to stab this human in the back when he was in danger. But now, after seeing the dragon soul true body, especially after seeing this human kill so many humans without even batting an eye, it completely gave up on this idea. It was better to stay by his side obediently. Otherwise, if this human went crazy again, it would not be able to bear it. And the most fundamental reason was that when Mo Sure released the giant dragon phantom, the spirit-engulfing beast felt a sense of familiarity with Mo Sure. This made it not as disgusted with Mo Sure as before. Because of these 2 reasons, it gave up on the idea of running away in the future. At this time, a tearing sound came from Mo Sure's back, and a pair of wings stretched out. This pair of wings was about 5 meters wide. The shape was similar to a bat's wings. However, there were several large and small holes on the wings. This was not a skill but his real demonic dragon wings. Although on the surface, the system did not give him any other benefits for this promotion. But in fact, as he evolved into the bloodthirsty demonic dragon, he had improved in all aspects. For example, the blood dragon wings had evolved into the demonic dragon wings. The demonic dragon wings could reach 10,000 meters per second when flying at top speed. Moreover, the demonic dragon wings were more flexible than the blood dragon wings. This gave him more space and maneuverability when fighting in the air. Moreover, the demonic dragon wings also added a defensive ability. This defensive ability was very abnormal. The demonic dragon wings protected the whole body and could withstand any physical and energy attack below the level of a level 1 Grand Desolate Master. At this time, Mo Sure stopped after flying at full speed for about 100 kilometers. He summoned the Sea Dragon clone and took out the Dragon Ball fragment. Then, he threw the Dragon Ball fragment to the Sea Dragon clone. The Sea Dragon clone opened its mouth and swallowed it. In the next moment, the Sea Dragon clone's body changed again. The scales on its body were more metallic than before. Its body length also increased again, reaching a length of 1,500 meters. The thickest part of its body was more than 50 meters thick. The pair of lumps on its forehead also bulged a little. It seemed that something was about to be born from them. The pair of dragon whiskers also grew a little longer, reaching a length of more than 10 meters. He looked even more imposing than before. At this time, the Sea Dragon clone looked very excited. It kept twisting its body and waving its claws. It stretched its neck and let out an earth-shattering roar. Roar. In the entire second district, within a radius of hundreds of square kilometers, all the creatures heard this roar. They were all greatly shocked. One by one, they fell to the ground, their bodies trembling. As a result of swallowing the Dragon Ball fragment this time, the Sea Dragon clone's level also increased again. Species: Sea Dragon. Level: Level 2 Strong Mutant Wild Beast. Ability: Expand. When Mo Sure saw this, he was secretly delighted. As long as he found another Dragon Ball fragment, would it be able to evolve into a real dragon? And looking at its size, it was not a Western dragon. It was going for the Eastern dragon god. The dragon god was an existence that was more awesome than the Western dragon. Could ride the clouds and summon the rain. Just thinking about it made him a little excited. Mosher looked around and gave an order to the sea dragon avatar. Move about freely and explore the ancient dragon battlefield to see what's going on. Chapter 4:15. The sea dragon clone was shaped like a giant dragon. It was 1,500 meters long. If such a huge body was allowed to wander around the ancient dragon battlefield, it would be too eye-catching. Therefore, Mosher let it return to a size of only 20 meters. Then, the sea dragon clone rose into the air and disappeared into the distant sky. After the sea dragon clone swallowed the dragon pearl fragment, its flying ability had greatly improved. It didn't seem to have wings, nor did it walk on clouds like in the legends. No one knew how it could fly, but it could fly, and its speed was far beyond that of ordinary creatures. This was something Mosher couldn't understand at all. Since he didn't want to think about things that he couldn't figure out, Mosher stopped thinking about it. He continued to envelop the area with a radius of 350 kilometers with his dragon consciousness. As for whether the disciples of the Skygold sect, Skywood sect, and Tianshui sect would be found out and would be hunted down by the three sects, Mosher didn't care at all. To a certain extent, he even hoped that the three sects would hunt him down. And the more people there were, the better. The more people there were, the more kill points he could obtain. This was also a slight change in his temperament after evolving into the bloodthirsty demon dragon. In the past, he was very cautious. Basically, they would hide until they were strong enough to crush their opponents. Only then would they reveal their identities. But now, because of the influence of the bloodthirsty demon dragon, his state of mind had quietly changed. He had a desire to kill and fight, but this wouldn't cause him to go berserk. Between the bloodthirsty demon dragon and going berserk, there was the word demon, but there was a big difference. Going berserk meant that he had lost his mind and couldn't control his killing. If he really went berserk, he might even kill his family and friends. But the bloodthirsty demon dragon was rational. Although it was also bloodthirsty, it would plan and kill rationally. It wouldn't hurt its friends and family, and it wouldn't lose its life for the sake of killing. Next, Mosher continued to wander in the second district. During this time, he encountered some dragon spirits, but they were all devoured by the spirit-devouring beasts. Mosher was very curious about the spirit-devouring beast. To humans, dragon spirits were extremely powerful and terrifying existences. Humans basically had no way to deal with dragon spirits, not even grand desolate masters. The spirit-engulfing beast looked very weak, but it was the bane of dragon spirits. No matter how powerful the dragon spirit was, it could swallow it in one gulp. Mosher spent 3 days exploring the area with his dragon will. At the same time, the sea dragon clone also wandered around. He did a simple search of the second district. He didn't find anything else useful. Next, he headed towards the third zone. In the ancient dragon battlefield, District 3 was more dangerous than District 2. Other than having more dragon spirits, the creatures in the third division were also more powerful than those in the second division. There were even some level 8 and above mutated dire beasts in the third district. Therefore, after entering the ancient dragon battlefield, some of the desolate hunters below level 8 did not dare to enter District 3. However, Mosher did not care about this. On the surface, he looked like a level 2 desolate hunter. However, his true combat power was enough to deal with a level 7 desolate hunter. In addition, with the sea dragon clone's strength as a level 2 mutated dire beast, he could roam freely in District 3. At the same time, in the Skygold trisect. After the Skygold sect's first elder sent out the message, no disciple responded. This made the first elder even angrier. That kid wanted to hide after killing his trusted disciple. He was too naive. He could hide for a while, but could he hide forever? Moreover, the Skygold sect's influence in the 16 prefectures of Serene Cloud was beyond imagination. In addition, the Heavenly Wood sect, Heavenly Water sect, Heavenly Fire sect, and Heavenly Earth sect were all in cahoots with the Skygold sect. It was not difficult to find a person. As long as that kid was still in the 16 prefectures of Serene Cloud, he could be found. However, something else happened in the Skygold sect these few days. There were more than 300 disciples who went to the ancient dragon battlefield to train. However, there were only about 220 people who could be contacted. The Skygold sect had a rule that all disciples in the ancient dragon battlefield had to check in every 3 hours. However, 15 hours had passed, and there was still no news from these 70 disciples. Obviously, they must have met with some mishap. They investigated and found that these 70 disciples were sent to investigate the catacombs in Zone 2. Could it be that they met with some danger in the catacombs? Therefore, the Skygold sect quickly sent people to the catacombs. However, they found that the catacombs were already empty. The dragon spirits from before were nowhere to be seen. However, they found many bloodstains and pieces of cloth on the ground near the catacombs. Judging from these pieces of cloth, they should be the clothes of the Skygold sect, Heavenly Wood sect, and Heavenly Water sect disciples. Obviously, the disciples of the 3 sects had met with a powerful attack here. They did not even have time to send out a distress signal or activate the wormhole transportation device. At the same time, the same thing happened to the Heavenly Wood sect and Heavenly Water sect. After a comprehensive analysis, everyone discovered a terrifying fact. Firstly, the murderer was still fighting against the Skygold sect, Heavenly Wood sect, and Heavenly Water sect. It was obvious that he was not afraid of the 3 sections. Secondly, there were more than 200 disciples from the 3 sects who came to the catacombs. However, there were no signs of fighting at the scene. In other words, these 200 people were killed in an instant. They did not even have the chance to react. To be able to kill more than 200 desolate hunters in the blink of an eye. This person's ability was probably that of a level 10 desolate hunter. To be more daring, this person's ability might have already reached the level of a grand desolate master. The 3rd elder of the Skygold sect, who was sent to investigate this matter, pondered for a moment before asking, "Which level 8 and above powerhouses have come to the ancient dragon battlefield recently?" The disciples of the Skygold trisect who were guarding the entrance answered, "The other forces are afraid of our 3 sects and do not dare to enter the ancient dragon battlefield rashly. During this period, only one super powerhouse has come to the ancient dragon battlefield. Han Jianxing, who froze 16 states with a single sword." Hearing this, everyone's expression changed slightly. They had heard of the name froze 16 states with a single sword since decades ago. Could it be that Han Jianxing was the murderer? However, why would he kill the disciples of the Skygold trisect for no reason? Could it be that he wanted to snatch the treasures in the catacombs? However, Han Jianxing was not someone who coveted treasures. He had no desires and was not interested in anything. The 3 sects had also warned their disciples many times to give way to Han Jianxing if they met him. Even if they could not, they had to give way. Hence, the disciples would not clash with Han Jianxing over a single treasure. Then who was it? Chapter 4:16. If it's not Han Jianxing, then who could it be? This question stumped everyone present. The 3rd elder of the Skygold sect glanced at the 2 elders of the Skywood sect and the Heavenly Water sect who had come to investigate. Finally, he looked back at the disciples of the 3 sects who were guarding the entrance. He asked, "Think about it carefully. Apart from Han Jianxing, are there any other experts who entered the ancient dragon battlefield? Not just recently, but also experts who have entered the ancient dragon battlefield in the past and have yet to come out." The disciples thought for a moment and shook their heads. The yin qi in the ancient dragon battlefield is too strong. That's why many people only stay for half a month before coming out. In the past month, the experts above level 8 who have entered the ancient dragon battlefield are all disciples of the 3 sections. As for the other factions, apart from Han Jianxing, there's also a Grand Desolate Master. But that Grand Desolate Master has already come out. The 3rd elder of the Skygold sect frowned. Could it be a mutated dire beast? But soon he rejected this idea. Although the ancient dragon battlefield was dangerous, there weren't many mutated dire beasts. Moreover, the strongest mutated dire beast in the 2nd zone was only level 7. It was impossible for it to tear so many people to pieces in such a short time. After a moment, he asked again, "Then think about it carefully. Recently, have there been any people from other forces that are not considered strong but have some strange abilities that have entered the ancient dragon battlefield?" The disciples shook their heads at first. Those who could enter the ancient dragon battlefield were not weak at all. But soon, someone thought of something and suddenly said, "Oh yes, a level 2 desolate hunter entered the ancient dragon battlefield." Everyone was stunned when they heard this. The ancient dragon battlefield was very dangerous. Generally speaking, only desolate hunters above level 5 would take the risk to enter the ancient dragon battlefield. As for the level 5 desolate hunters, entering the ancient dragon battlefield was basically a suicide mission. But now, a level 2 desolate hunter had entered the ancient dragon battlefield. Naturally, it was very strange. Everyone's eyes were focused on the disciple who spoke. The third elder asked again, "You let a level 2 desolate hunter in?" The disciple shook his head and said, "We didn't want to. We didn't plan to let him in." But Han Jianxing came later. He even took the initiative to greet the level 2 desolate hunter. It seems like they have a good relationship. So we didn't dare to stop him. The disciple's voice became softer and softer as he spoke. They had indeed failed in their duties. At the very least, they should find out the relationship between that brat and Han Jianxing. However, they also had their own difficulties. At that time, Han Jianxing's aura was too strong. They didn't dare to say anything. The third elder asked with a solemn expression, "What is his relationship with Han Jianxing? Are they very close, or just acquaintances?" The disciple stammered and finally said, "We're not too sure." At that time, he was the first to arrive, and Han Jianxing was right behind him. When Han Jianxing asked him if he had become a second-stage desolate hunter, he replied, "Yes." Then Han Jianxing entered the ancient dragon battlefield. He followed us into the ancient dragon battlefield. The third elder of the heavenly gold sect fell silent again. Under such circumstances, it was really hard to determine the relationship between that brat and Han Jianxing. Han Jianxing came to the ancient dragon battlefield once a year, regardless of whether it was a low or high tide. He came here to pay his respects to his deceased wife. This wasn't strange. But where did that brat come from? What was his relationship with Han Jianxing? At this time, the elder of the heavenly water sect asked, "That second-stage desolate hunter and Han Jianxing entered the ancient dragon battlefield. Were they heading here?" The disciple who answered shook his head at first, then nodded his head. The others were puzzled. What did he mean by nodding and shaking his head? The disciple replied, "Han Jianxing went in the direction of the 4th district. He goes in that direction every year. But that second-stage desolate hunter went in the direction of the 2nd district." At this point, he suddenly paused. The rest of the crowd also came to their senses. A second-stage desolate hunter dared to go into the 2nd district alone. There was definitely something strange about this. Moreover, this tragedy happened in the 2nd district, and he was heading there. Obviously, he was the most suspicious. At this time, one of the disciples guarding the entrance seemed to have thought of something. He said, "Right, now that I think about it, that second-stage desolate hunter looks a bit like the murderer in the video message of the first elder a few days ago." Hearing this, the others felt a chill in their hearts. The third elder's voice suddenly became a lot harsher. "Why didn't you report this before?" The disciples all panicked. Before he and Han Jianxing came at the same time. We thought they were related. Moreover, the third elder waved his hand. "We'll talk about your questions later. Everyone, retreat to the entrance immediately." Everyone immediately activated their hoverboards and flew towards the entrance. Since that brat had the strength to kill 200 desolate hunters in an instant, the disciples guarding the entrance naturally couldn't defend. Therefore, the third elder ordered everyone to reinforce the entrance. At the same time, the third elder secretly estimated the strength of himself and that brat. As a level 10 desolate hunter, even if he couldn't win against that brat, he wouldn't be killed by him. However, if that brat and Han Jianxing came at the same time, it would be troublesome. However, the first elder was the second in command of the Skygold sect after the sect master. He was someone who couldn't be offended. The first elder's personal disciple had been killed, so he naturally wanted to take revenge. Moreover, that brat had probably killed more than 70 Skygold sect disciples, as well as hundreds of Skywood sect and Heavenly Water sect disciples. This debt couldn't be let go just like that. Even if he had Han Jianxing behind him and couldn't take revenge on that brat, he had to at least ask for an explanation. Otherwise, the Skygold sect, Skywood sect, and Heavenly Water sect, the top 3 forces in the 16 prefectures of Serene Cloud, would become a laughingstock. Thinking of this, the third elder reported this matter to the sect master of the Skygold sect. The sect master of the Skygold sect immediately ordered the first elder to bring more than 50 desolate hunters to the ancient dragon battlefield as reinforcements. At the same time, the 2 elders of the Skywood sect and Heavenly Water sect also reported to their sect masters. After all, more than 70 desolate hunters had died in their sections. One had to know that every desolate hunter was made up of countless resources. Now that 70 of them had died, it was definitely a heavy loss. Moreover, this matter was very likely related to Han Jianxing. If they didn't report this, how could the elders resist Han Jianxing? Chapter 417. When the elders of the Skygold, Skywood, and Skywater sects realized that Han Jianxing might be involved, they immediately contacted their respective sections. After a discussion, the upper echelons of the 3 sects decided that each sect would send a Grand Desolate Master to the ancient dragon battlefield. If this matter had nothing to do with Han Jianxing, it would be good. If it did, then the 3 Grand Desolate Masters would be able to make Han Jianxing feel apprehensive. Of course, they did not know that Han Jianxing had already been promoted to a level 2 Grand Desolate Master. As for these 3 sects, all the 4 Grand Desolate Masters were only level 1 Grand Desolate Masters. In the end, the 3 Grand Desolate Masters of the 3 sects led close to 500 Desolate Master disciples to guard the entrance for 3 days, but they did not see Wuxia come out. Especially the Skygold sect's Grand Elder. He was eager to avenge his disciple and said to the Grand Desolate Masters of the other 2 sects, "You guys continue to guard here with your disciples. I'll go in and search." The Grand Desolate Masters of the other 2 sects wanted to stop him, but when they saw the Skygold sect's Grand Elder's determined gaze, they gave up. Many people said that Yi Bufan was actually the illegitimate son of the Skygold sect's Grand Elder. However, due to many complicated relationships, he could not admit it, so he could only accept Yi Bufan as his disciple. Now that his son had been killed, he was naturally furious. If they insisted on stopping him, he would probably be displeased. Therefore, the Grand Desolate Masters of the other 2 sects told the Skygold sect's Grand Elder to be careful and let him go. Seeing the Skygold sect's Grand Elder lead the 100 Desolate Masters into the depths of the ancient dragon battlefield, the 2 Grand Desolate Masters shook their heads. One of them said, "Nothing will happen to him, right?" The other said, "Although he's eager to avenge his disciple, he's not a young man without schemes. If he really meets Han Jianxing, I believe he knows what he's doing." The Grand Desolate Master sighed. "Sigh, I hope so." The Skygold sect's Grand Elder led the 100 Desolate Masters and flew towards District 2. They arrived at the edge of the underground cavern. Then he said to the disciples, "With this place as the center, spread out and search. Once you find traces of that kid, don't attack him. Contact me immediately." The group of disciples didn't dare to disobey and replied, "Yes." As they spoke, they spread out in all directions to search the area. However, as they searched, these disciples were somewhat on tenterhooks. Although they had the backing of a Grand Desolate Master, the murderer was in existence that could instantly kill over 200 desolate hunters. If that brat really went crazy, then they would be torn to shreds by that brat before Head Elder arrived at all. But now that things had come to this, how could they dare to disobey the Great Elder's orders? They could only continue to search the area. At this time, Wuxia had already thoroughly investigated District 2. He didn't find anything else of value here, so he set off for District 3. The third zone of the ancient dragon battlefield was a lake. There were over 1,000 lakes of various sizes here. The large ones were tens of thousands of square kilometers, while the small ones were only slightly more than 1,000 square meters. So many lakes formed a huge group of lakes. These lakes were more than 10,000 meters deep. In these lakes, water plants crisscrossed. If he wanted to go down for a swim, it was very likely that he would be entangled by the aquatic plants. From the looks of it, there weren't any mountains or forests here, so there didn't seem to be any danger. However, since this place was classified as District 3, it meant that it was more dangerous than District 2. Therefore, Wuxia didn't relax in the slightest. He first used his draconic sense to completely investigate the area within a radius of 350 kilometers. He found that the surface seemed to be very safe, and there wasn't any danger. He then controlled his draconic sense to investigate these lakes. In his investigation, he found that there were many skeletons in these lakes. These skeletons weren't complete. After an unknown amount of time, many of the skeletons had been corroded by the microorganisms in the lake water and water until they were full of holes. However, according to the location of these skeletons after a rough reconstruction, he found that these skeletons were basically the skeletons of dragons. The small ones were only about 50 meters long, while the large ones were more than 1,000 meters long. All of the skeletons were basically incomplete. However, he could occasionally detect that some of the skeletons still had the skull of a dragon. Their sharp and thick teeth, their angular brow bones, and the dozens of sharp bone spurs on their heads. All of them described the might, power, and dominance of this dragon when it was alive. These dragon skeletons all had a certain research value. One of them could be sold for a lot of money. However, Wuxia didn't care about this small amount of money. After inheriting almost all the property of the owner of Hunting Island No. 1, Wuxia wasn't short of money at all now. In his eyes, money was just a string of numbers. Therefore, his current focus wasn't on these things. He was looking for one thing, the Dragon Ball fragments. He already had 2 Dragon Ball fragments. If he swallowed another one, the Sea Dragon avatar should be able to evolve into a real Eastern Divine Dragon. However, after flying over this group of lakes for half a day and investigating for half a day, he still didn't find any Dragon Ball fragments. It seemed that he was overthinking. According to legend, it seemed that only Eastern Divine Dragons had Dragon Balls in their bodies. As for Western dragons, he didn't seem to have heard of any Dragon Balls. And the dragon skeletons in these lakes seemed to belong to Western dragons. It was normal that there were no Dragon Balls. After searching in District 3 for another 2 days, Wuxia even condensed his virus avatar and entered these lakes. In the end, he didn't find anything. This made him feel a little strange. According to the memories of all the disciples of the Heavenly Gold Trisect, District 3 should be more dangerous than District 2, and there should be more treasures to be obtained. However, there was neither danger nor any treasure to be obtained here. This was very strange. However, since he couldn't figure it out for the time being, Wuxia simply stopped thinking about it. Instead, he continued to head to more dangerous places. However, not long after Wuxia left, the largest lake in the group of lakes seemed to suddenly light up. Looking down from the sky, this lake seemed to be a window. At night, someone used a flashlight to flash through this window. However, it only lit up for a moment and soon dimmed again, as if nothing had happened. Wuxia left the 3rd zone and headed towards the most dangerous zone, the 4th zone. After arriving here, Wuxia's vigilance was much higher. Whether it was the map he obtained or the memories he plundered from those people, District 4 was extremely dangerous. The danger was not only because there were some powerful mutated wild beasts here, but also because there were many dragon spirits here. Chapter 418. From the map and the memories of the Skygold sect disciples, Wuxia knew that the 4th zone was the most dangerous zone in the ancient dragon battlefield. Therefore, as soon as he arrived here, he raised his guard. The spirit-engulfing beast beside him also lowered its body and looked around nervously from time to time. However, to Wuxia's surprise, this place was not as creepy as he had imagined. On the contrary, it was a large grassland. The grass was not very tall, only reaching his knees. There were large patches of wild flowers in the grass. Red, blue, yellow, purple, and white. A breeze blew and the flowers nodded. A large river meandered through the grassland. It looked like a jade belt under the sunlight. Not far away, there were a few birds with beautiful feathers. They flew in the sky for a while and then disappeared into the flowers. The sun was shining brightly and the flowers were fragrant. No matter what, no one would associate this place with the ancient dragon battlefield. Mosher probed with his dragon will and soon found a figure sitting on the bank of the river more than 200 kilometers away. His face was full of whiskers and there was a giant technological sword beside him. This person was none other than Han Jianxing. At this moment, Han Jianxing was holding a wine jug and facing the river. He raised his head and took a sip from time to time. Beside him was a grave filled with weeds and wildflowers. In front of the grave was a stone tablet that was taller than a person. There were 4 words written on it: Tomb of the Deceased Wife. The name of the tomb owner was not engraved, nor was the person who had set up the tablet. Han Jianxing came to the city once a year to mourn for his deceased wife. It was admirable indeed. At this moment, Han Jianxing might have already known that Mosher was here. However, he did not seem to care at all. At this moment, he did not want to be disturbed by anyone. Mosher did not intend to disturb him either. He continued to probe nearby. At the same time, more than 200 kilometers behind Mosher, the first elder of the Skygold sect had brought more than 100 disciples to the edge of the 4th zone. A disciple said, "First elder, according to the life detector we left behind, that guy has entered the 4th zone. Should we follow him?" The first elder of the Heavenly Gold sect said, "Yes, why not?" That disciple still wanted to say something, but another disciple beside him tugged at the corner of that disciple's clothes. The disciple could only swallow his words. However, everyone else was thinking the same thing as him. Ever since they knew about the ancient dragon battlefield, they had heard that District 4 of the ancient dragon battlefield was terrifying. Every elder warned them, if you have the chance to go to the ancient battlefield of the great dragon in the future, don't enter District 4 without careful consideration. Therefore, now that the great elder had allowed them to enter, they felt somewhat uneasy. But head elder's orders, they did not dare to defy either. He could only grit his teeth and follow the first elder into the 4th district. As he walked, he silently comforted himself. With the grand elder, the grand desolate master, there shouldn't be any problems. The great elder wasn't stupid. Although his heart was filled with anger and hatred, he did not let it get to his head. He knew that although the ancient dragon battlefield was terrifying, it was currently at a low ebb and was not as scary as before. Moreover, the scariest part of the ancient dragon battlefield was only at night. During the day, this place was no different from any other ordinary place in the outside world, since there were various signs that indicated that this kid had gone to District 4. Naturally, he had to let his disciples follow him in to search before the sky turned dark. After about 2 hours, a level 10 psychic master from the Skygold sect suddenly said, "Found him." The disciples of the Skygold sect were stunned. The Skygold sect's great elder immediately ordered, "Lead the way." The level 10 psychic master replied, "Yes." Then he quickly flew forward. The 100 or so disciples of the Skygold sect immediately followed. After a while, they saw Mosher stopping in the middle of the grassland. Moreover, Mosher did not panic at all when he saw them. Instead, he looked at them with a smile. This made them somewhat puzzled. The Skygold sect's great elder's eyes were filled with anger. "Kid, did you kill my disciple Buffon?" Mosher was facing a grand desolate master who was almost a level higher than him. He calmly nodded and said, "Yes." Everyone was stunned. Ordinary people would not be able to speak properly when they met a grand desolate master. This kid was not afraid of killing a grand desolate master's disciple and even dared to admit it. Was he crazy? The Skygold sect's great elder's face turned colder. He asked in a deep voice, "Did you kill the 70 or so disciples of the Skygold sect?" Mosher smiled again and said, "Yes." Hearing this, everyone from the Skygold sect was dumbfounded. There were not many people who dared to offend the Skygold sect. This kid had killed the Sky Gold Sect's disciples and even admitted it in front of so many of them. He was really about to go crazy. Although the Sky Gold Sect's great elder was furious, he thought to himself, this kid is so confident because he has Han Jiansheng behind him. But now that things have come to this, he could not care less. I'll take him down and make him suffer. I'll make a decision when Han Jiansheng really shows up. Having this thought, his aura burst out from his body. All the wild flowers and weeds within a 10-kilometer radius were pressed against the ground by his aura. Some rocks that had been weathered over time were turned into dust by his aura. The aura of a grand desolate master was so terrifying. But at this moment, Longwei's aura suddenly spread out from Mo Shi's body. In an instant, the disciples of the Sky Gold sect with a lower cultivation level knelt on the ground. Even the disciples with a higher cultivation level could not help but feel the urge to kneel on the ground and worship Lin Fan. Even the Sky Gold sect's great elder felt the urge to worship Lin Fan. He could not help but feel shocked. What the hell was this kid doing? Lin Fan was clearly weaker than him, and his aura was even more different. Why did he suddenly feel the urge to worship Lin Fan? He naturally did not know that Mo Shi's Longwei did not care about how strong one was. It was a kind of suppression between species. Since ancient times, dragons had been the most mysterious and powerful creature in the universe. Any living creature would unconsciously have the urge to submit when encountering a dragon. However, the stronger the creature, the weaker the urge to submit. The Sky Gold sect's great elder thought that this urge to submit came from his fear of Han Jiansheng, who was behind Mo Shi. He could not help but feel a little angry. Han Jiansheng was like a mountain. For so many years, he had been above all the forces in the 16 prefectures of the Serene Cloud. He had left them breathless. Now that they were in the ancient dragon battlefield, he was still suppressing them. If there came a day where he could raise his strength to another level, he would definitely kill this Han Jiansheng. Chapter 419. The great elder of the Sky Gold sect led more than 100 disciples to find Mo Shi. Mo Shi didn't panic at all. Instead, he calmly admitted that he was the one who had done everything. At the same time, he released his Longwei. The Longwei now wasn't the Longwei that had been cultivated in the Dragon's Cave. It was the Longwei that Mo Shi had released after he evolved into the bloodthirsty demon dragon. Humans were considered a very weak species in front of dragons. Even a grand desolate master was much weaker in front of a real dragon. The great elder of the Sky Gold sect naturally had the urge to worship Lin Huang. However, he was a grand desolate master after all. In terms of cultivation level, he was almost an entire realm higher than Mo Shi. Very quickly, he suppressed the urge to worship Lin Huang. Humph! You're just trying to mystify me. He let out a loud shout, and his imposing aura burst out once again, pressing down on Mo Shi. He was facing the aura of an expert who was almost an entire realm higher than him. Even Mo Shi didn't dare to face it head-on. He had already planned to summon the Sea Dragon clone. The fourth zone was more dangerous. Therefore, he had already recalled the Sea Dragon clone the moment he entered the fourth zone and let it enter his personal reservoir. Once there was danger, he would summon it immediately. However, just as the great elder of the Sky Gold sect's aura was about to press down on Mo Shi, at this moment, an even stronger aura suddenly pressed down on the great elder of the Sky Gold sect. That aura was far stronger than the great elder of the Sky Gold sect. The great elder of the Sky Gold sect's expression changed drastically. He hurriedly retracted the aura that was pressing down on Mo Shi. At the same time, a Longwei that was 100 times larger than Mo Shi's Longwei suddenly attacked. Longwei wasn't like aura that could form substantial pressure. It was formless, and didn't have any destructive power. It was elegant, intellectual, approachable, or sloppy and wretched. In essence, it wouldn't cause any harm to others. However, Longwei was able to create an extremely strong psychological pressure on creatures other than the Dragon Clan. Mo Shi had just evolved into a giant dragon, but his Longwei was already able to make opponents who were almost an entire realm higher than him feel the urge to worship him. One could only imagine how much of an impact a Longwei that was 100 times stronger than his Longwei would have on his opponent's psyche. The disciples of the Heavenly Gold sect were terrified when they saw Long Wei. The timid ones fell straight to the ground. Those who were braver also knelt on the ground one after another. All of them were trembling in fear, not even daring to raise their heads. Only the great elder of the Heavenly Gold sect, a level 1 Grand Desolate Master, could barely remain standing. However, in the face of Long Wei, they felt as if they were standing in front of an ancient behemoth. In front of this colossus, even though he was a level 1 Grand Desolate Master, he was still insignificant. This gigantic creature only needed to move its claws slightly to crush him into dust. Furthermore, when this colossus moved its claws, he couldn't even think of resisting. He didn't even have the thought of running away. Most importantly, this feeling made him panic. One had to know that in the 16 prefectures of the Serene Cloud, a level 1 Grand Desolate Master was already the pinnacle of existence. Ever since he became a level 1 Grand Desolate Master in the past 50 years, he had never felt the fear of being dominated. However, he felt it now. If that was the case, how strong was this kid? However, he soon forced himself to stay alert. This kid was just a level 2 Grand Desolate Master. How could he be so strong? Furthermore, it didn't seem like Han Jiansheng was behind this. In his opinion, Han Jiansheng was also a level 1 Grand Desolate Master, at the same level as him. Even if Han Jiansheng's battle strength was much higher than his, it was impossible for him to feel such a strong sense of oppression. This brat must have used some kind of method to deceive them. He looked at Emosher. He saw that Emosher didn't feel the slightest bit of pressure. That's right, this kid must be playing tricks on me. Thinking of this, he said sternly, "Disciples of the Sky Gold sect, listen up. This kid is acting mysterious. As long as we overcome the fear in our hearts, he's just a desolate paper beast." However, after he finished speaking, none of the Sky Gold sect disciples responded. He turned around and saw that all the Sky Gold sect disciples were kneeling on the ground, trembling. They didn't even dare to raise their heads. The Sky Gold sect Grand Elder was dumbfounded. What was going on? Was this kid so terrifying? At the same time, Emosher was also dumbfounded. He didn't do anything. What was wrong with these guys? At this moment, a shadow slowly rose from the ground behind Emosher. It was a huge shadow that was 1,000 meters long and 800 meters wide. This phantom looked like a giant dragon. Its head, claws, tail, eyes, and scales could all be seen clearly. Although it was just a shadow, it gave off a strong sense of deterrence. The disciples of the Heavenly Gold sect trembled in fear when they saw this scene. Giant dragon, evil spirit. Giant dragon, evil spirit. It's over. It's over. Run, run. The moment they saw the dragon soul, everyone's expression changed drastically. Giant dragon evil spirits were different from dragon spirits. Dragon spirits were the combination of dragon consciousness and energy. Giant dragon evil spirits were formed when the energy in the dragon's body didn't dissipate immediately after the dragon died. This energy wrapped around the dragon's consciousness and left it behind. Over time, this consciousness gradually became chaotic. Only the dragon's instinct to kill and devour was left. This was known as a giant dragon evil spirit. A giant dragon evil spirit had terrifying energy. Humans like them couldn't fight against it at all. Moreover, the evil spirit only had the instinct to kill and devour. Therefore, as long as the evil spirit didn't dissipate, it would kill and devour endlessly. However, the giant dragon evil spirit would only appear at night. After all, it was an evil spirit and was a little afraid of sunlight. Why would this giant dragon evil spirit appear in broad daylight? Seeing this, the Sky Gold sect Grand Elder hurriedly shouted, "Run!" In the next moment, he turned and fled first. When the rest of the Sky Gold sect disciples saw this, they all turned and fled. At this moment, the giant dragon evil spirit spread its wings and swooped down. It spat out a mouthful of dragon breath at the humans below. Its dragon breath was an enormous amount of energy. Boom, 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 boom. Explosions rang out continuously within a radius of 10 kilometers. Smoke and dust filled the air as sparks flew everywhere. The beautiful grassland that had been like a paradise just now instantly turned into a battlefield. The Sky Gold sect disciples who were attacked immediately screamed as they were sent flying. With just one attack, more than 10 Heavenly Gold sect disciples had been killed. The remaining Sky Gold sect disciples were severely injured even if they weren't killed. Even the Sky Gold sect Grand Elder was sent flying 1,000 meters away by the shockwave of the explosion. Chapter 420. Even the first elder of the Sky Gold sect, a level 1 Grand Desolate Master, was sent flying 1,000 meters away by the energy attack of the dragon evil spirit. As for the other disciples of the Sky Gold sect, they were all sent flying as well. Most of them were injured. More than 10 desolate hunters died on the spot. When Emoshur saw this scene, he immediately became anxious. That's right, he wasn't scared. He was panicking. These Heavenly Gold sect disciples were the kill points that he had already decided on. Other than him, no one else was allowed to kill the Sky Gold sect disciples. He would fight whoever killed him. At that moment, the colossal dragon evil spirit flapped its wings and flew towards Emoshur after using its energy to send the Heavenly Gold sect disciples flying. Through its illusory body, one could see that the energy had already gathered in its abdomen. Then it moved from its abdomen to its throat. Finally, it gathered in its mouth. It was now less than 5,000 meters away from Emoshur. 5,000 meters sounded very far. But for the 1,000-meter-long dragon evil spirit, 5,000 meters was enough for it to launch an attack. On its illusory head, the huge mouth opened like a cave that had been sealed for thousands of years. Between its sharp fangs and scarlet tongue, the fiery red energy had already gathered into a white color. White hot. The next moment, boom, the white hot energy spread out in a fan shape. With the dragon's mouth as the center, it swept through the space with a radius of 5,000 meters. The Sky Gold sect disciples heaved a sigh of relief when they saw this. This kid was dead meat. As long as this kid died, they could immediately activate the wormhole transportation device and leave this godforsaken place. They had had enough of this godforsaken place. Seeing this, the first elder of the Sky Gold sect felt the anger in his chest rising up to his throat. He was about to vent his anger. This kid had killed more than 70 elite disciples of the Sky Gold sect. Most importantly, he had killed his son. Now, he was finally going to die. It was a pity that he couldn't kill him personally. He had let him off too easily. Just as the energy was about to reach Emoshur, Emoshur suddenly stopped. Emoshur used his mind. A knife appeared in his hand. The knife looked very ordinary. It was like the knife used by the butchers during the Lunar New Year. The handle of the saber was wrapped in a dirty white cloth. The unique characteristic of this saber could only be described in one word: big. The broadest part of the blade was more than 2 feet wide. The blade was actually more than 2 meters long. Dragon Salyer. Emoshur held the dragon Salyer in his hand, and more than half of the energy in his body crazily poured into the dragon Salyer. Other than being big, the ordinary-looking dragon Salyer was actually shining at this moment. Furthermore, the closer the energy of the giant dragon evil spirit got, the brighter the light of the dragon Salyer became. It was like a lighthouse in the dark night. The darkness was overwhelming, as if it was going to swallow the entire world. But Lighthouse was not afraid. It did its best to release its light, tearing the darkness apart. In the next strike, Emoshur raised the dragon slaughtering saber above his head. Perpendicular to the ground, it slashed down toward the overwhelming energy. In the next moment, a chaotic energy that seemed black and white, yet was neither black nor white, surged out from the dragon's slaughtering saber. Whoosh, this energy was in the shape of an arc. His momentum was extremely fast. As soon as it appeared, it disappeared. It was as if it had never appeared. However, the energy of the giant dragon evil spirit that was originally attacking Emoshur from all directions suddenly stopped when it was only half a meter away from Emoshur. This feeling was as if a tsunami was attacking you from all directions, but it suddenly stopped when it was half a meter away from you. It was extremely dangerous, but the scene looked very mysterious. Moreover, Even the giant dragon evil spirit in the sky 5,000 meters away suddenly stopped. It was as if someone had used a camera to freeze this scene. But 3 seconds later, a crack appeared in the center of the energy that covered the sky and the earth. This crack was not wide. It was only about 10 centimeters. However, it connected the sky and the earth, as if it was going to split the world apart. In the next moment, the energy that covered the sky and the earth instantly dissipated between heaven and earth. It was as if the dark clouds that covered the sky and the earth just now had vanished into thin air in front of a gust of wind. At the same time, in the sky 5 kilometers away, the 1,000-meter-long giant dragon evil spirit was also split into 2 halves. Oh. Accompanied by a long wail, the giant dragon evil spirit also disappeared into thin air. In an instant, the world became clear. It was as if the giant dragon evil spirit had never appeared. It was as if Wuxia was the only one left in the whole world. Carrying the dragon-slaying saber on his shoulder, he stood against the wind. His entire face seemed to be engraved with 2 big words: pretentious. When the disciples of the heavenly gold sect saw this, they all looked at Wuxia in disbelief. This guy, is he a human or a god? He actually killed the giant dragon evil spirit. From the moment they knew about the giant dragon evil spirit, everyone had warned them that the giant dragon evil spirit was a very powerful existence. Even a level 1 desolate hunter like the Great Elder could only take a detour when encountering the giant dragon evil spirit. When these desolate hunters encountered the giant dragon evil spirit, they had no other choice but to use the wormhole teleportation device to escape. But now, this guy actually withstood the giant dragon evil spirit's breath and killed it with a single slash. This was 2F** King exaggerated. Most importantly, when this guy was fighting, they could clearly feel that this guy's aura was only that of a level 2 desolate hunter. One had to know that they were basically level 7 or level 8 desolate hunters. In their eyes, a level 2 desolate hunter was simply an ant. But now, this ant actually killed the giant dragon evil spirit with a single slash. They had never dared to brag like this in their lives. This guy actually did it. This was really too exaggerated. As for the heavenly gold sect's Great Elder, he was even more shocked. The stronger one was, the more one could feel the power of the giant dragon evil spirit. Most importantly, the giant dragon evil spirit did not have a body. It was completely a mixture of soul and energy. Therefore, it could not be killed at all. Even if you slashed it with a saber, it could still recover. Even if you blasted it with energy, it could still recover. Even if you fought until you were exhausted and died of exhaustion, you would still not be able to kill it. This was the scariest part about it. Therefore, when encountering a giant dragon evil spirit, the most rational thing to do was to take a detour. But now, this guy actually killed the giant dragon evil spirit with a single slash. How could a mere level 2 desolate hunter be so powerful? Common sense told him that this was simply impossible. While he was still in shock, his gaze fell on the large saber that Wuxia was carrying on his shoulder. It was an ordinary-looking broadsword. On the surface, even the most insignificant disciple of the heavenly gold sect would not be interested in this saber. But it was this saber that had split the energy of the giant dragon evil spirit and killed it instantly. Then, this saber was the main reason why this guy could kill the giant dragon evil spirit in an instant. Thinking of this, greed flashed across the heavenly gold sect's Great Elder's eyes. Chapter 421. In the eyes of the Sky Gold sect's Grand Elder, the reason why a mere level 2 desolate hunter could kill the giant dragon evil spirit, which even he, a grand desolate master, did not dare to touch, was because of this seemingly insignificant saber. Since the evil spirit was already destroyed, why not take the opportunity to snatch the saber? Even if this kid was related to Han Jiansheng, he would have something to say if Han Jiansheng pursued the matter. He had killed his personal disciple and over 70 elite disciples of the Sky Gold sect. Compensating him with a saber was not too much, right? Thinking of this, he felt even more confident. Greed immediately appeared in his eyes. However, this greed only lasted for a moment. The Sky Gold sect's motto was that everything had to be righteous. Even if it was to snatch someone else's treasure, there had to be a valid reason. This was deeply engraved in their bones. Thinking of this, he ordered the Sky Gold Sect's disciples. Surround this brat. The Heavenly Gold Sect disciples only recovered from the shock of seeing Emoshur instantly kill the colossal dragon evil spirit after hearing his shout. They quickly spread out and surrounded Emoshur in the middle. The Sky Gold Sect's Grand Elder said, "Brat, you killed more than 70 of my Sky Gold Sect's elite disciples and my personal disciple. I wanted to kill you for revenge, but the Sky Gold Sect has always been on good terms with Han Jianxing, so I'll spare your life. However, you have to compensate the Sky Gold Sect with this saber so that I can answer to the Sky Gold Sect's disciples." At this moment, Emoshur was also in a state of shock. Although the system had explained to him that the dragon-slaying saber had an absolute restraining effect on the dragon's body, soul, energy, dragon consciousness, and other aspects. However, he did not expect it to be so restrained. The giant dragon evil spirit, which even a level 1 Grand Desolate Master did not dare to touch, was killed in one strike. This was too exaggerated. This dragon-slaying saber was indeed a treasure. Seeing the Sky Gold Sect's disciples surrounding him, the Sky Gold Sect's Grand Elder said some high-sounding nonsense. A cold smile appeared on the corner of Emoshur's mouth. How could he not know what the Sky Gold Sect's Grand Elder was thinking? If you want to snatch the saber, just do it. What nonsense are you spouting? The Great Elder of the Heavenly Gold Sect saw that Emoshur only sneered and did not reply. Immediately, the anger in his heart burned even brighter. "Since you're so stubborn, don't blame me for being merciless." As he spoke, his aura suddenly surged. Like a tsunami, it pressed down on Emoshur. At the same time, hundreds of kilometers away by the river, Han Jianxing, who had a full beard, paused slightly as he was about to take a sip of wine. In fact, when these people appeared, he had already sensed them. Naturally, he also sensed the situation Emoshur was in. Of course, he knew that Emoshur knew that he was nearby. Therefore, he had been waiting for Emoshur to speak from the moment these people attacked. In the past, Emoshur had helped him find his daughter, and he had made a promise to Emoshur. He could help Emoshur once. From the beginning, he had been waiting for Emoshur to speak. Especially when the evil dragon appeared, he felt that Emoshur would definitely speak. However, the result was beyond his expectations. This kid actually killed the evil dragon with a single slash. This was really an eye-opener for him. Even he, who was not afraid of the evil dragon, did not want to get into trouble like this. The evil dragon could not cause much harm to him, and he could not kill the evil dragon either. In this regard, this kid was indeed quite capable. Now, this kid was facing danger. If he spoke, he would be able to rush over in an instant and save this kid from danger. However, he did not expect this kid to have no intention of looking for him from the beginning until now. Therefore, he naturally would not rush over to save him. Who could he blame if he was courting death? It would be a pity if such a talent died. However, what did that have to do with him? Who asked him to be unwilling to speak? At this moment, at the scene, the powerful aura that was like a mountain pressed down on Emoshur. To be honest, Emoshur would definitely not be able to withstand such an aura. He was about to summon the Azure Dragon clone. However, at this moment, another mighty Long Way suddenly attacked everyone from all directions. Moreover, this Long Way was 10 times or even 100 times stronger than the Long Way of the evil dragon. In everyone's hearts, it rose up like the sky and covered the earth. A bone-deep fear was born in everyone's hearts. This kind of fear made them unable to even think of running away. Therefore, all the Heavenly Gold Sect disciples knelt on the ground and shivered. Even the Great Elder of the Heavenly Gold Sect did not kneel on the ground, but his body also began to tremble. When he raised his head to look, he saw huge shadows rising from the grassland as far as his eyes could see. A dragon evil spirit, 2 giant dragon evil spirits, 3 evil dragon spirits. Hundreds and thousands of evil dragon flapped their wings and soared into the sky. The bone-chilling feeling came from the hundreds and thousands of dragon evil spirits. Just one evil dragon had almost wiped out all the Heavenly Gold Sect disciples. Now, there were hundreds and thousands of evil dragon. Even the great elder of the heavenly gold sect felt his scalp go numb. He looked at the disciples who were prostrating on the ground and did not dare to move. While he was shocked, he hurriedly pressed the micro-wormhole transportation device. In the next moment, he transformed into a blue-white ball of light and disappeared instantly. As for the heavenly gold sect disciples, they did not dare to use the micro-wormhole transportation device earlier because the Great Elder was here. No one dared to escape. Now that the Great Elder had escaped, they could naturally escape too. However, no one escaped. Under the immense psychological pressure of Long Wei, they could not even think of escaping. Among all of them, the only one who was not suppressed by Long Wei was Mo Shi. He was also a bloodthirsty demonic dragon. He could also produce Long Wei. The Long Wei of the evil dragon would naturally not affect him at all. Seeing that the hundreds and thousands of evil dragon spirits were about to kill these people, Mo Shi hurriedly used his telekinesis to kill the 2 level 10 telekinesis masters among the heavenly gold sect disciples. However, it was a pity that level 10 telekinesis masters were no longer qualified. After killing 2 level 10 telekinesis masters, he did not even gain a single kill point. As for the others, they were basically level 7 to level 8 telekinesis masters. With Mo Shi's current dragon will, he could not kill them all. At this moment, the hundreds and thousands of evil dragon were already flying over. Even the few evil dragons at the front had begun to condense their energy to bombard it down. Mo Shi panicked. They were his people. Only he could kill them. At this thought, he swung the dragon-slaying saber on his shoulder. The saber shone brightly. Chapter 422. On the blade of the dragon-slaying saber, a brilliant light shone. A chaotic light that was black and white, but also neither black nor white, was suddenly released. In an instant, it enveloped an area of more than 10 kilometers. In the next moment, Mo Shi faced the hundreds and thousands of giant dragon evil spirits and leaped up. In the air, the bones on his back creaked. A pair of wings tore through the flesh on his back and stretched out. This pair of wings was about 5 meters wide. On the wings, there were more than 10 holes of various sizes. It looked dilapidated, but it gave off a strange, mysterious, and powerful feeling. At this time, Han Jiansheng, who was hundreds of kilometers away, was stunned when he saw Mo Shi's pair of wings. He could be considered to be experienced and knowledgeable, but he had never seen such a pair of wings. This pair of wings, from the general outline, looked a bit like the wings of the Blood Clan. However, there were so many holes on it, which was very surprising. Moreover, this pair of wings seemed to give off a feeling of having passed through the vicissitudes of time. What kind of wings was this? The moment Mo Shi spread out his wings, the hundreds and thousands of giant dragon evil spirits seemed to have felt some kind of aura. The weaker ones hurriedly flapped their wings and fled into the distance. The stronger ones seemed to have gone crazy as they flew towards Mo Shi. Mo Shi flapped his wings and raised the dragon-slaying saber high up. With a loud shout, "Die!" Following this shout, the dragon-slaying saber swept across. Whoosh! An invisible saber chi swept across half of the sky in an instant. The giant dragon evil spirits that were flying towards Mo Shi were cut in half by the saber chi after pausing for 3 seconds. In the next moment, they instantly disappeared into the sky. With one slash, hundreds of giant dragon evil spirits were instantly killed. This scene caused all the disciples of the Heavenly Gold sect to be dumbfounded. In their sect, the strongest person was the sect master. But even their sect master could only take a detour when he saw the giant dragon evil spirits. But this guy was actually able to kill hundreds of them with one slash in the face of so many giant dragon evil spirits. This was simply too exaggerated. Han Jiansheng, who was hundreds of kilometers away, was also surprised when he saw this scene. This kid's saber was indeed powerful. But no matter how powerful he was, he couldn't possibly kill over 100 evil dragons with a single slash, right? Even a level 2 grand desolate master like him could not do it. Naturally, he didn't know why Mo Shi was able to unleash such terrifying power. Firstly, he had the dragon-slaying saber in his hand, which specialized in subduing giant dragons. Secondly, it was because Emo had evolved into a bloodthirsty demon dragon. If he only had the dragon salure, he would not be able to unleash its strongest power. The dragon salure was used to slay dragons, and the bloodthirsty devil dragon also specialized in slaying dragons for fun. If the bloodthirsty demon dragon used the dragon salure, how could the dragon have a good time? But even so, Emo was still shocked by the sudden change in the situation. The power of this dragon salure was truly formidable. Since the dragon slaughtering saber was so powerful, it naturally had to slaughter all of these giant dragon evil spirits. Thus, Emo waved his dragon slaughtering saber in the sky and continuously chased after those huge dragon evil spirits. Those that had escaped dozens of kilometers away, he flapped his wings and could catch up to them in an extremely short period of time and kill them. Emo, who was hiding underground, hacked his saber at the ground. The saber chi went deep into the ground, and even the evil spirits were cut in half. The giant dragon evil spirits were wailing like ghosts and howling like wolves. It was a tragic sight. The disciples of the Heavenly Gold sect were all stunned. In the past, they had only heard of giant dragon evil spirits chasing after humans. Who would have thought that one day, there would be a human holding a huge butcher's knife and chasing after these giant dragon evil spirits on the giant dragon ancient battlefield? However, in the midst of their confusion, someone still reacted. He saw that Emo had already chased after them for dozens of kilometers. He hurriedly shouted to the other disciples in a low voice, "Run!" As he spoke, his right hand had already pressed on the wormhole teleportation device. Seeing this, the other disciples also took out the wormhole teleportation device. However, at this moment, a figure suddenly appeared under their feet. It was the spirit-devouring beast. In their panic, these people did not notice the appearance of the spirit-devouring beast. The spirit-devouring beast opened its mouth. Suddenly, dozens of tentacles appeared in its mouth. These tentacles instantly extended and swept over the hands of these people. Hundreds and thousands of tiny tentacles extended from its tentacles and wrapped around the wormhole teleportation device in these people's hands. Then, with a sudden tug, it swallowed the wormhole teleportation device into its mouth. All of this took a long time to describe, but in fact, it happened in an instant. These people did not even have time to react. By the time they reacted, the spirit-devouring beast had already jumped hundreds of meters away. These people's expressions changed drastically. They had already seen Emo-Shur's teleportation ability before, and their fastest speed was only 1,000 meters per second. This was child's play compared to Emo-Shur's teleportation ability. Therefore, the wormhole teleportation device was their only hope if they wanted to escape. However, the spirit-devouring beast had swallowed the wormhole teleportation device. Wasn't this cutting off their escape route? Catch it! A disciple of the Heavenly Gold sect yelled. The other disciples of the Heavenly Gold sect heard this and hurriedly ran forward, trying to catch the spirit-devouring beast. However, although the spirit-devouring beast was not very powerful, it was very good at escaping. It directly burrowed into a hole in the ground and did not come out no matter how much energy they released into the hole. These people saw that Emo was about to kill all the giant dragon evil spirits and became more and more anxious. They even used genetic martial arts to create a huge ravine that was 10 meters wide, 1,000 meters long, and over 20 meters deep in the ground. Even so, they could not find the spirit-devouring beast. What should we do? A disciple of the Heavenly Gold sect wiped his sweat and asked fearfully. Another disciple of the Heavenly Gold sect said, "What else can we do? If we don't escape now, when will we? Can we escape? That kid can teleport. Still better than waiting for death here." However, at this moment, a disciple stopped these people. He was the calmest among the 100 disciples of the Heavenly Gold sect. He said, "We can't escape at all. Why don't we all join forces and fight that kid to the death?" Someone shook his head and said, "Fight to the death? Didn't you see how terrifying that kid was when he killed the evil spirits? Fight to the death with him? It's like ants fighting to the death with an elephant. No, it's worse than ants fighting to the death with an elephant." That calm disciple shook his head and said, From what I saw, that kid didn't seem to have such terrifying combat power when facing our Grand Elder. When the Grand Elder's aura exploded, that kid didn't seem to be able to resist at all. However, when facing these giant dragon evil spirits, his combat power seemed to be off the charts. I'm guessing that the sword in his hand is specially made to restrain the giant dragon evil spirits. After he said that, everyone thought about it and realized that this was indeed the case. At this moment, everyone seemed to see a glimmer of hope. Chapter 4:23. At that moment, everyone seemed to have seen a glimmer of hope. However, this hope was still rather slim to them. If they did this, they might still have a chance of survival. If they did not do this, they would definitely die. "Fight!" a disciple shouted. "Fight him! There are so many of us. I don't believe we can't beat him." That's right. No matter how strong he is, he's only a level 2 desolate hunter. We have so many level 7 and level 8 desolate hunters. Can't we beat him alone? These people gave themselves a boost of adrenaline and started to condense their genetic weapons. The calmest disciple of the Heavenly Gold sect said, "When he comes over later, we'll all activate our energy weapons at the same time and give him a fatal blow." As they spoke, Emoshur had already killed all the giant dragon evil spirits. Then he flapped his black, tattered wings and flew towards the Heavenly Gold sect disciples. Clearly, he did not intend to give these Heavenly Gold sect disciples any chance. Hence, the calmest disciple of the Heavenly Gold sect shouted, "Energy weapon!" At this moment, everyone's genetic weapons glowed red and white and turned into energy weapons. The next moment, everyone's energy weapons shot out red and white light at the same time. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. More than 100 red and white light pillars shot towards Emoshur. Seeing this, Emoshur teleported and dodged the red and white light pillars. These people changed their direction again, and the red and white light pillars continued to attack Emoshur. Emoshur once again teleported and appeared behind all of them. These people turned around again and aimed their energy weapons at Emoshur. However, when they aimed their energy weapons at Emoshur this time, they were all stunned. Emoshur had already disappeared. What appeared in front of them was a giant dragon. This giant dragon was not as huge as the giant dragon evil spirits. It was only 100 meters long. However, this giant dragon was a real giant dragon. Every black scale on its body had a diameter of 3 meters. Under the sunlight, it shone with a metallic luster. The dragon's claws were 5 meters long and shone with a cold light. There were dozens of javelin-like bone spurs on the dragon's head. This made its already ferocious head even more ferocious. A pair of blood-red eyes, so red that it seemed as if blood could drip out. It had a dragon tail that was dozens of meters long, thick and powerful. On its back, there was a triangular ridge that resembled a blade, extending from its neck to the end of its tail. Its most distinctive feature was its pair of wings. This pair of wings with a wingspan of more than 80 meters actually had many holes of various sizes. It was as if he had casually found 2 broken pieces that had not been repaired for a long time and hung them on the wing bones. The disciples of the Heavenly Gold sect had seen Emoshur disappear, but a huge dragon had appeared. He then looked at the dragon's wings, which were almost identical to Emoshur's wings except for the size. They were all dumbfounded. That kid had turned into a giant dragon? Could a human become a dragon? Not even the most ridiculous stories they had ever heard were so ridiculous. This was simply inconceivable. Han Jiansheng, who was more than 100 kilometers away, finally opened his eyes wide and stood up. He had roamed the 16 prefectures of the Serene Cloud for dozens of years. He had seen a lot of strange things. However, he had never heard of a human turning into a giant dragon. In all the stories, humans were humans and dragons were dragons. He had never heard of a human becoming a dragon. Speaking of which, this kid could actually become a dragon. No wonder he, a mere level 2 desolate hunter, dared to come to the ancient dragon battlefield alone. It seemed that he had really underestimated him. Previously, no matter how talented he was, Han Jianxing had not put him in his eyes. After all, Han Jianxing himself was a person with great talent. It could be said that, in terms of talent, he was the ceiling. He had never seen a person with greater talent than him. He had not cultivated for dozens of years, yet he had risen from a level 1 Desolate Master to a level 2 Desolate Master. From this, it could be seen how abnormal his talent was. Therefore, no matter what kind of genius he was, they were all bullshit in his eyes. But now, Mo Shi was actually able to transform into a dragon. This was what really surprised him. The moment Mo Shi transformed into a dragon, most of the Heavenly Gold sect disciples were dumbfounded. He even stood there in a daze, staring at the 100-meter-long dragon. The calmest disciple was also a little confused. After all, in the eyes of humans, dragons were synonymous with power. They might not have been able to defeat this kid, but now he had transformed into a dragon. How could they fight? But they had to fight even if they couldn't. Energy weapon, he shouted loudly, waking the rest up. Everyone hurriedly aimed their energy weapons at the dragon. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Hundreds of energy weapons blasted towards Mo Shi. Mo Shi did not dodge. Boom, 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 boom. These hundreds of energy weapons blasted onto Mo Shi's body. They kept exploding into balls of fire. Visually, the dragon that Mo Shi had transformed into could no longer be seen. He could only see balls of fire exploding at the place where he had been standing. But even so, these Heavenly Gold sect disciples did not stop. Their energy weapons blasted onto Mo Shi's body, creating new balls of fire. Boom, 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 boom. Just like that, the bombardment went on for 3 minutes. The calmest disciple raised his right hand, signaling for everyone to stop. After everyone stopped for more than 10 seconds, they saw a figure slowly emerge from the flames at the spot they had blasted. The 100-meter-long dragon was intact, except for its tattered wings. Everyone subconsciously took a few steps back. With so many of them attacking at the same time, even a level 1 Desolate Master would not dare to take it head-on. But this dragon did not dodge, and used its body to take on the strongest attacks of over 100 people. The strength of his body was too abnormal. Han Jianxing, who was more than 100 kilometers away, shook his head and sighed, "What a strong body!" In the sky, Missouri Shi gently flapped his wings while secretly rejoicing in his heart. He did not dodge just now because he wanted to test the strength of his bloodthirsty demon dragon body. One had to know that the greatest strength of a dragon was its terrifying body. If the bloodthirsty demon dragon's body could not withstand the energy weapons of these level 7 and 8 Desolate Masters, it would be too disappointing. Fortunately, the results did not disappoint him. He could feel that the scales of the bloodthirsty demon dragon could withstand any attack below a level 1 Desolate Master. Not to mention, it had a pair of tattered wings. This pair of wings could also withstand any attack below a level 1 Desolate Master. Chapter 424. The reason why Mo Shi didn't dodge the attacks of these people was because his scales weren't just for show. His defense was quite strong. Secondly, he had a pair of wings. Although the wings were tattered, they could still withstand any physical and energy attacks below the level of a level 1 Grand Desolate Master. With such double insurance, he could naturally try his luck. In Mo Shi's opinion, if a giant dragon could not even withstand the attacks of a mere Desolate Master, his scales should be removed and thrown into the rubbish bin. At this moment, seeing that he was fine, Mo Shi opened his mouth wide. A dragon roar came from his throat. Roar! Roar! This dragon roar was intimidating. This made all the Heavenly Gold sect disciples' faces change drastically. Run! At this moment, the calmest disciple could no longer stay calm. With a loud shout, he turned around and fled into the distance. What a joke! So many of them had attacked, but the giant dragon's body had withstood it. If they did not escape now, were they waiting to become its dinner? However, Mo Shi did not give them the chance to do so. More than 500 meters away, he opened his huge mouth. Boom! A gust of scorching energy came out of his mouth. Red flame dragon breath. This scorching dragon breath instantly engulfed the ground within a radius of 100 meters. It engulfed all the heavenly gold sect disciples. Ah! No! Save me! The ground had turned into a sea of fire. Screams of the heavenly gold sect disciples could be heard from the sea of fire. But after a short 10 seconds, there were no more screams. At the same time, the string of numbers representing kill points in Mosher's mind had changed frowny face kill points. 401, 1000. Looking at the sea of fire on the ground, Mosher could not help but sigh in his heart. Giant dragons were indeed much stronger than humans. As a level 2 giant dragon, he was much weaker than these humans in terms of level. But with the strength of his body, he could crush these desolate masters who were 5 or 6 levels higher than him. This was the strength of a giant dragon. After killing all the heavenly gold sect disciples in one move, his kill points had increased by more than 100. It was a pity that there were too few Sky Gold sect disciples. If there were more, wouldn't he be able to advance again after one move? However, Mosher knew from the memories of these people that they were only disciples of the Heavenly Gold sect. There were also more than 100 disciples from the Heavenly Wood sect and the Heavenly Water sect. In total, there were more than 300 people. Thinking of this, Mosher couldn't help but feel excited. Glancing at the grassland below, he flapped his wings and flew toward the entrance of the ancient battlefield of the Great Dragon. No matter what secrets or treasures there were in this grassland, they had to be put aside for the time being. To the current Mosher, there was nothing more valuable than killing points. He flapped his wings and flew forward quickly. He was not running at full speed. Even so, it could still reach over 1,000 meters per second. At the same time, in the outside world, in the Heavenly Gold sect of Cloud State, the Great Elder had already returned to the Heavenly Gold sect using the wormhole transportation device. He had already found the sect leader and reported what had happened at the Ancient Dragon battlefield. Sect Master, I've already ordered everyone to use the wormhole teleportation device to escape. However, they still haven't returned. It's obvious that they don't have a chance anymore. Almost all the dragon evil spirits have appeared at the Ancient Dragon battlefield. If they don't return immediately, they won't be able to return anymore. At this point, the Great Elder's voice became lower and lower. The sect master frowned when he heard this. The Heavenly Gold sect was indeed the most powerful sect in the 16 prefectures of the Serene Cloud. They had more than 300 elite disciples who were level 5 desolate hunters and above. This was a very rich sect. However, more than 200 elite disciples had already died at the Ancient Dragon battlefield. This was definitely a huge blow to the Heavenly Gold sect. Great Elder, you are responsible for this, the sect leader of the Heavenly Gold sect said. The Great Elder looked guilty. Sect leader, it's indeed my fault for not being able to bring them back. I'll accept any punishment from you. However, compared to punishing me, what's more important now is to plan ahead. In my opinion, that kid, Mosher, is very strange. Although the chances of him surviving in front of thousands of dragon evil spirits aren't high, he still needs to be prepared. We've already formed a deep grudge with him. If he really escapes alive, he'll definitely come to the Heavenly Gold sect to seek revenge. The Heavenly Gold sect leader scoffed. It's fine if he doesn't come. However, if he dares to come to the Heavenly Gold sect, he won't be able to return alive. After the report, the Heavenly Gold sect leader said, since the Ancient Dragon battlefield is so dangerous, immediately inform the Heavenly Wood sect and Heavenly Water sect to withdraw all disciples. We've suffered great losses. We can't let them suffer with us. Yes. The Great Elder of the Heavenly Gold sect immediately contacted the Heavenly Water sect and Heavenly Wood sect. Soon, at the entrance of the Ancient Dragon battlefield, the Heavenly Wood sect and Heavenly Water sect leaders who were guarding there received the news. When they saw this, their expressions changed. They didn't expect that after the Great Elder of the Heavenly Gold sect brought more than 100 elite disciples into the Ancient Dragon battlefield, everyone except the Great Elder was wiped out. Now that the Great Elder of the Heavenly Gold sect had escaped, there was no point for them to guard here. After a simple discussion, the two of them ordered the disciples. All Heavenly Wood sect and Heavenly Water sect disciples. Activate the wormhole transportation device and return. The Heavenly Wood Sect and Heavenly Water Sect disciples couldn't wait to return. One must know that the most terrifying thing in the ancient dragon battlefield was the giant dragon evil spirits in the 4th zone. Now that those giant dragon evil spirits had gone crazy, when were they going to leave? Therefore, they all took out the wormhole transportation device. However, at this moment, a roar suddenly came from afar. Roar! Roar! They had heard such a roar many times in the ancient dragon battlefield. Evidently, it was the roar of a dragon. However, in the ancient dragon battlefield, the roar of a dragon would only be heard at night. They had never heard it during the day. When the roar of a dragon was heard, everyone felt a chill in their hearts. The roar of a dragon was too oppressive for them. However, this was only secondary. After the roar of a dragon was heard, boom, 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 everyone's wormhole teleportation devices exploded one after another. Everyone was startled. The Heavenly Wood Sect and Heavenly Water Sect leaders were also shocked. Sound wave attack. That's right. This was Mosher's sound wave attack. He already had the skill of a sound wave attack a long time ago. However, as his strength increased, the power of the sound wave attack became less and less impressive. However, in this situation, using the sound wave attack to destroy these people's wormhole transportation devices was pretty good. Chapter 425. Following the dragon's roar, the wormhole teleportation devices of everyone from the Heavenly Wood Sect and the Heavenly Water Sect exploded. Just as everyone was alarmed, someone suddenly pointed to the distant horizon. In the distant sky, a figure was flying over at high speed. First, it was just a black dot. Soon, the black dot became bigger. Gradually, it became bigger and bigger. Only then did everyone see clearly that it was actually a huge dragon. It was not the phantom of a huge dragon evil spirit, but a real huge dragon. A huge dragon with tattered wings. Everyone felt a chill in their hearts. Huge dragon. Didn't the huge dragons go extinct tens of thousands of years ago? What's going on? Is it an illusion? While everyone was puzzled and frightened, Mosher had already flown above them. When everyone saw this 100-meter-long dragon, they felt an inexplicable sense of insignificance. It was as if they were ants in front of this creature. They even had the urge to kneel down and worship it. When the 2 sect masters saw this, they suppressed the fear in their hearts and shouted to everyone, "I wonder where this huge dragon came from." However, its strength is clearly lower than a grand desolate master. Disciples, don't panic. Let's work together to slay the dragon. When they said the words, slay the dragon, the 2 sect masters could not help but feel a sense of pride. Since ancient times, huge dragons were the symbol of mystery and power. As for dragon slayers, they were even more admirable. Now, what the 2 of them were going to do was exactly what the dragon-slaying warriors had done. How could this not make the 2 of them feel proud? In fact, their feelings were not wrong. After Mosher evolved into a bloodthirsty demon dragon, he was invincible against anyone below the Grand Desolate Master level, just based on his physical strength. However, he had only evolved for a short period of time and was only considered a young dragon. If they were to fight face-to-face, he would not be a match for a Grand Desolate Master. The 2 sect masters each took out a weapon. One wielded a saber, while the other wielded a sword. They all looked like highly advanced weapons. On the saber and sword, a fiery red glow appeared. After reaching the Grand Desolate Master level, one could add energy to their weapons to fight. Although using energy could cause large-scale damage, the lethality was not very strong. On the other hand, when energy was added to a weapon, the damage it could inflict on the enemy was extremely terrifying. Hence, after becoming a Grand Desolate Master, one would have to find a suitable weapon to use. Mosher sneered when he saw this. "Do you think that I'm afraid of you just because your weapons are equipped with energy? That's right, you're right. However, who didn't have dozens of trump cards?" Thinking of this, Mosher's mind moved. At this moment, a figure suddenly appeared beside him. This figure was actually 2,000 meters long. Such a huge Weiwei gave these humans a strong sense of oppression. From its silhouette, Wei Wei looked like a giant snake. However, there were two lumps on its head, for thick and powerful claws making people shudder. Although dragons had appeared on the flaming continent before, there had never been a Wuxia divine dragon. There wasn't even a legend of the Wuxia dragon god. Therefore, these humans, including the disciples of the Heavenly Wood sect and Heavenly Water sect, had never seen such a monster before. Heavens! What kind of monster is this? I've never seen a desolate beast like this. The two sect masters also had a bad feeling at this moment. In front of this strange creature, they could feel a sense of oppression. It was the sense of oppression when they were obviously not a match for it. Then, in the sky, the sea dragon clone moved. It suddenly turned around, and its huge tail smashed directly at the two sect masters on the ground. Seeing this, the two sect masters knew that they couldn't dodge. They could only hurriedly condense an energy light shield in an attempt to resist this guy's tail. Bang! A huge sound was heard. The sea dragon clone's huge tail smashed into the ground. The two sect masters were smashed directly into the ground. Only the upper half of their bodies were still above the ground, and the protective light shields on their bodies were directly shattered. Both of their heads and faces were covered in blood. The expressions of all the disciples changed drastically when they saw this. These two grand desolate masters were their pillars of support. They were the strongest people here and also their pillar of support. And now, in front of this creature, their pillar of support was smashed to the point of bleeding. How could this not make them panic? Mo Sure controlled the sea dragon clone and didn't give them the slightest chance to resist. It snaked down from the sky. Its huge claws directly grabbed at the two of them. The two of them obviously still wanted to resist for a little while. But before they could complete their resistance, the sea dragon clone's huge claws had already caught them. Even the ground above them was torn by this big guy's sharp claws, creating two huge ravines that were 1,000 meters long, 100 meters wide, and more than 10 meters deep. As for the two of them, under the sea dragon clone's sharp claws, they were directly thrown far away. They flew for a full 2 kilometers before falling to the ground. At this time, the two of them no longer had any aura on them. The sea dragon clone's seemingly ordinary claw actually contained the power of lightning. Don't forget that the sea dragon could release electricity. When the electricity hit the two of them, dozens of tentacles protruded from the sea dragon clone's claws. Each tentacle pierced deeply into the bodies of the two people. It devoured their blood. Therefore, when the two of them fell to the ground, they had already become 2 dried corpses. This scene was not detected by Han Jiansheng, who was thousands of kilometers away. Otherwise, even he would be surprised. After all, he was only a level 2 grand desolate master, and this creature's level was completely the same as his. And because of the advantage of physical strength, the sea dragon clone's combat strength had already surpassed his. At this time, the disciples of the Heavenly Water sect and the Heavenly Wood sect were all panicking. Even their greatest pillar of support had been killed by this huge creature with a single claw. How could they be any better? Especially in front of this huge creature, they would feel a sense of oppression from the bottom of their hearts. This made them unable to even think of resisting. The only thing they could do now seemed to be to run. So, these 200 people immediately scattered and fled in all directions. At this time, the sea dragon clone did not make any more moves. When the sea dragon clone killed the enemy, Mo Sure would not get kill points. He would only get kill points when he was in human form or bloodthirsty demon dragon form. So he let the sea dragon clone clean up the 2 grand desolate masters first. He would leave the rest to him. Chapter 426. Mo Sure first let the Azure Dragon Avatar deal with the 2 grand desolate masters before flapping its wings and chasing after the Heavenly Wood sect and Heavenly Water sect disciples. More than 30 people were killed by the red flame dragon breath, another profound ice dragon breath, and another 70 people were frozen into ice cubes. In the legends, these people had only heard of ice attribute dragons and fire attribute dragons. Ice and fire were completely incompatible. They did not expect this dragon to be able to control both ice and fire types. They could not defend against it even if they wanted to. When one used ice type to defend, it used fire type to attack. When one used fire type to defend, it used ice type to attack. In the end, these 200 people were all killed by Mo Sure. His kill points increased once again. Kill points 6541000. Seeing that he was just short of 300 killing points, he would be able to level up again. Mo Sure had already thought about where he would go to get more kill points after leaving the Ancient Dragon battlefield. Naturally, he would go to the Heavenly Gold Sect, Heavenly Wood Sect, and Heavenly Water Sect. Of course, the Heavenly Fire Sect and Heavenly Earth Sect were on the same side as these three sections. It would be best if these two sects also came over to join in the Muddy Waters. Then, he would be able to capture them all in one fell swoop. At this moment, the people of the 16 Serene Cloud prefectures would never have imagined that the elite disciples of the three sects would be killed by a level 2 Desolate Master. At this moment, only 1/3 of the elite disciples of the three sects were left. Mo Sure was not in a hurry to leave the Ancient Dragon battlefield to find them. Instead, he returned to the 4th district. Logically speaking, risk and reward went hand in hand. The greater the risk, the greater the reward. In the Ancient Dragon battlefield, the 4th district was the most dangerous, so the reward would definitely be the greatest. He was going to spend some time to investigate this place thoroughly. While Mo Sure was investigating the 4th district of the Ancient Dragon battlefield, in the Heavenly Wood Sect and the Heavenly Water Sect, after sending out the news, their elders had already arrived at the teleportation hall in the sect. They were waiting for the sect leader and the rest to return. However, after half an hour, not only did the sect leader not return, but even the disciples did not return. This caused these elders to be secretly anxious. First elder, why aren't the sect leader and the rest back yet? Do you think? A disciple asked. Shut up, the great elder lectured. You've cultivated for so many years, yet you're still so impetuous. How can you accomplish great things? The disciple quickly lowered his head and said, Yes. The great elder continued. In short, we've already sent out the message. When the sect master and the others will return will depend on the decision made at the last minute. Is this something a junior like you can guess? The disciple lowered his head again. Yes. After another 3 hours, the great elder began to feel anxious. Logically speaking, even if the sect master and the others weren't coming back for the time being, they should have at least sent him a message. But 3 hours had passed, and there was still no news. Could it be that something had really happened? However, as the Grand Elder, when the sect master was not around, he had to hold down the entire sect. Naturally, he could not reveal his thoughts. When the disciples beside him saw that the Great Elder was able to keep his composure, they could not help but secretly admire him. As expected of the Great Elder, he could still maintain his composure under such circumstances. If it were him, he would have panicked long ago. It seemed that he still had to learn more from the Great Elder in order to improve. 2 hours later, the Great Elder had already begun to walk. In fact, he also wanted to contact the sect master and ask what was going on. However, the sect master hated people who restricted his freedom the most. Even asking would infuriate him. Therefore, under normal circumstances, the sect master would not say that he was going out for a few hours. Even if he was out for a few days, he did not dare to ask. So until now, he did not dare to send a message to the sect master to ask about the situation. When the disciple beside him saw this, he was puzzled. Could it be that the Great Elder could not keep his composure anymore? He could not help but ask, "Great Elder, what are you?" The Great Elder glared at the disciple and scolded, "I ate a little too much just now. I need to exercise to digest." The disciple quickly lowered his head. Yes. He also blamed himself in his heart. He still had to learn more from the Great Elder. After another 2 hours, seeing that the sky was already dark, the Great Elder could no longer hold it in. Fine, let the sect master be angry. He directly dialed the number of the sect master's multifunctional watch. The disciple beside him was puzzled. "Great Elder, didn't you say to stay calm?" The Great Elder glared at the disciple and said in his heart, "The sky is already dark. Stay calm, my asterisk is." But on the surface, he replied, "It's about time." The disciple pondered for a moment before nodding. Soon, the great elder had already dialed the number. However, after a full minute, there was still no reply from the other side. Then, he dialed a second time, a third time, and a fourth time. Still, there was no reply. His heart could not help but thump. Next, he dialed the number of the second elder and the third elder who had followed the sect master to the ancient dragon battlefield. However, there was still no reply. The great elder panicked even more. Could it be that the sect master and the others had really met with trouble at the ancient dragon battlefield? Now, the second elder and the third elder had followed the sect master to the ancient dragon battlefield. He, the great elder, was the only one left in the sect. If something really happened, he did not even have a single person to discuss it with. If he really wanted to discuss it, he could only discuss it with the Heavenly Gold Sect and the Heavenly Water Sect. Thinking of this, he wanted to call the Heavenly Water Sect's Great Elder. However, before he could do so, the Heavenly Water Sect's Great Elder called. "What's the situation at your Heavenly Wood Sect? Has everyone returned?" The Great Elder's heart thumped again. He asked in return, "What about you?" The Heavenly Water Sect's Great Elder sounded anxious. "No, not a single one has returned. The sect master did not return either. Also, we can't contact anyone." The Great Elder's expression turned even more solemn. "Same for us." With this, both sides could guess what had happened. The two Great Elders felt their legs turn to jelly. Their sect masters were both level 1 Grand Desolate Masters. If the other disciples died, they still had a chance to rise again. However, if something were to happen to the two sect masters, then their two sects would probably decline from then on. "Then, what do we do now?" the Heavenly Water Sect's Great Elder asked. The Heavenly Wood Sect's Great Elder pondered for a long time before saying, "Wait here. I'll go to your sect and discuss this matter properly." The Heavenly Water Sect's Great Elder nodded. "Okay, I'll wait." It seemed that this was the only way now. Turning back, the Heavenly Wood Sect's Great Elder said to the disciple beside him, "Call back all the elite and core disciples who are still outside the sect. Close the gates tightly." The disciple beside him also knew that this was a serious matter. He hurriedly lowered his head and replied, "Yes." At the same time, Wuxia continued to investigate the ancient dragon battlefield. Chapter 427. While the Heavenly Wood Sect and Heavenly Water Sect were panicking, Wuxia had already returned to his human form and was continuing his exploration of the ancient dragon battlefield. There were no more evil dragons here, so there was no danger. Wuxia was searching every inch of the battlefield. Han Jiansheng, who was over 100 kilometers away, was also doing the same. However, his focus was on Wuxia. Although he was surprised that Wuxia had single-handedly exterminated all the evil dragons, he knew that Wuxia had relied on the saber in his hand to do so. But now, Wuxia was actually able to transform into a dragon. This was far beyond his expectations. How could he not be surprised that such a mysterious creature like the dragon could actually appear in the real world? As far as the people of the Flaming Origin continent knew, the dragons had been extinct for tens of thousands of years. They only existed in the history books and legends. Who would have thought that this fellow could actually transform into a dragon? Even someone as experienced and knowledgeable as Han Jiansheng couldn't help but be shocked. Wuxia, who had transformed into a dragon, had single-handedly killed over 100 level 7 and level 8 desolate hunters with the power of a single dragon. This truly showed how terrifying a dragon's combat strength was. Wuxia searched the 4th district for a full 5 hours before finally discovering something. The 5th district looked like a plain, but in fact, it was more than 10 meters below the ground. In fact, it was all underground caves. The largest of these caves were 1,000 meters long and 1,000 meters wide. The smaller ones were only 10 meters long and 10 meters wide. Moreover, each of these underground caves had many holes. These holes extended in all directions, connecting all the caves. No one knew how big the underground cavern was, or if there were any good things inside. Even though Mo Sure had the strength of a level 7 psychic master, it was impossible for him to explore all of these caves in a short period of time. However, Mo Sure had created 100 doppelgangers that entered the caves through different holes. The doppelgangers spread out in all directions to explore the caves. Although the strength of these clones was not as strong as his main body, they were still very strong. However, the doppelganger's draconic will had also reached level 5, allowing it to scout out a range of 250 kilometers. Therefore, with 100 virus clones, the efficiency of the investigation was very impressive. 2 hours later, they finally found something. In one of the caves, a corpse was found, the corpse of a dragon. When Mo Sure passed through more than 50 underground tunnels and arrived in front of the giant dragon's corpse, he couldn't help but feel excited when he saw the 300-meter-long giant dragon's corpse. After all, this was his first time seeing a real dragon. Although it was a corpse, the dragon's scales were dark red in color. The entire body of the giant dragon was perfectly preserved. The dragon's scales, head, claws, fangs, and spikes were all perfectly preserved. Most importantly, the dragon's corpse did not show any signs of drying up. It didn't look like it was dead at all. It looked more like it was asleep. Even though Mo Sure was a giant dragon, standing in front of this giant dragon, he couldn't help but feel a sense of oppression. Mo Sure couldn't help but exclaim in his heart, was this a real giant dragon? It seemed that compared to a real giant dragon, he still lacked a sense of dominance and deterrence. However, Mo Sure couldn't be blamed for this. It hadn't been long since he evolved into a giant dragon. It was impossible for him to have the dominance and deterrence of a giant dragon in such a short time. This was like a monkey that had just evolved into a human. He definitely couldn't get rid of the various monkey habits for the time being. While exclaiming in amazement, Mo Sure began to use his draconic will to investigate this giant dragon in detail. Being immortal after tens of thousands of years, there must be something special about this giant dragon. Just over 10 minutes later, Mo Sure discovered something strange. He saw that there was a piece of bone about 1 meter long on the spine of this giant dragon. This piece of bone was different from the rest of the bones. It was obviously connected later. In terms of color and shape, it didn't look like something this giant dragon should have. However, looking at that piece of bone, Mo Sure felt that it was somewhat familiar. Soon he reacted. The incomplete dragon vein. Previously, he had obtained a piece of incomplete dragon vein. The shape and color of this small piece of dragon bone looked similar to that of the incomplete dragon vein. This discovery made Mo Sure's heart tremble. Because according to the previous legends, the incomplete dragon vein was obtained from the ancient dragon battlefield. There was a big secret on the incomplete dragon vein. If he could mend the incomplete dragon vein, he would discover this big secret. Thinking of this, Mo Sure moved his mind and took out the incomplete dragon vein from the miniature world. He saw that this incomplete dragon vein and the incomplete dragon vein in this giant dragon's body could be combined into a complete dragon bone. Seeing this, he couldn't help but feel a little excited. The incomplete dragon vein was finally going to be completed. He immediately wanted to use his sharp claws to cut open the giant dragon's body and take out the incomplete dragon vein. However, a moment later, he realized that his sharp claws couldn't cut open the giant dragon's body. Even if he activated the invisible force, he could only leave a shallow wound on the surface of the giant dragon's body. Even though it had been dead for tens of thousands of years, the scales on the surface of the giant dragon's body were still terrifyingly hard. Mo Sure had no choice but to take out the dragon salyer. He stabbed at the giant dragon's back. Puff! The dragon salyer easily pierced through the giant dragon's scales, pierced through its skin again. With a light slash, swish, a 5-meter-long gash was drawn out. As expected, the dragon salyer was simply made for slaying dragons. Every scale of the giant dragon was more than 10 centimeters thick, and the dragon skin inside these scales was actually half a meter thick. It was no wonder that Mo Sure's sharp claws were unable to penetrate it. What surprised Mo Sure was that when he cut open the giant dragon's body, he discovered that there was actually blood gushing out from the wound. After 10,000 years, there was still blood in this giant dragon's body. It was as if it had just died. Mo sure couldn't help but be a little tempted. System, can I collect this blood? The system replied, although the bloodthirsty demon dragon is known as bloodthirsty, it doesn't need to absorb the blood of other giant dragons. The bloodthirsty demon dragon's evolution only requires continuous slaughter. Mo sure nodded. You're right. As he spoke, he took out 10 pure buckets, poured out the clean water inside, and collected the giant dragon's blood. Although the system said that it was useless, this was the blood of a real giant dragon after all. Perhaps it would come in handy in the future. After collecting 10 buckets of giant dragon's blood, Mo sure used the dragon salyer to continue expanding the wound and slash towards the dragon vein on the giant dragon's back. After all, the dragon vein was the most important thing right now. Chapter 428. After Mo sure collected 10 buckets of dragon blood, he used the dragon-slaying saber to expand the wound to the incomplete dragon vein. After all, compared to the dragon blood, the dragon vein was more important. It wouldn't be too late to collect the dragon blood after taking out the dragon vein. Soon, he used the dragon-slaying saber to cut open the flesh inside and found the incomplete dragon vein. This incomplete dragon vein was pure black, completely different from the other bones of the dragon. Mo sure used the dragon-slaying saber to cut off the dragon bones at the two ends of the dragon vein and took out the incomplete dragon vein. At this moment, a scene that he had never expected occurred. After losing the incomplete dragon vein, the giant dragon's corpse quickly shriveled up. The blood in its body also directly vaporized. In just half a minute, the huge dragon's corpse shriveled into a mummy. It was even worse than a mummy because the bones in its body had also turned into powder. Mo sure couldn't help but be stunned. He secretly regretted it. If he had known this would happen, he would have collected more dragon blood just now. However, looking at the 10 buckets of dragon blood in the plastic bucket, Mo sure was still quite satisfied. In the legends of the Flaming Land, a drop of dragon blood could cause a catastrophe in the cultivation world. But now, Mo sure had a total of 10 buckets. Now he was truly awesome. Next, Mo sure looked at the 2 incomplete dragon veins in his hands. He tried to put the 2 incomplete dragon veins together. However, after trying, he realized that he couldn't put them together at all. He kept feeling that something was missing. It turned out that each of these 2 incomplete dragon veins was only 1/3 of a complete dragon vein. If he wanted to obtain the complete dragon vein, he still needed to find the last 1/3. Mo sure couldn't help but feel like he had F***ed up. Helpless, he could only place his hopes on signing in. Perhaps he could sign in for the last 1/3 of the dragon vein. System, sign in. The system's voice sounded in time as usual. Frowny face. Sign in successful. Sign in location. Ancient Dragon Battlefield. Underground Dragon Cave. Sign in reward. Dragon Binding Rope. Dragon Binding Rope? Mo sure frowned slightly. He was a little disappointed that he couldn't sign in for the last 1/3 of the dragon vein. He focused his attention on the dragon binding rope in his backpack. The dragon binding rope looked like an ordinary iron chain. There was nothing special about it. Dragon binding rope, specially crafted to bind dragons. It can completely withstand the enormous power of the giant dragon. While binding the giant dragon, it can release neurotoxins that suppress the giant dragon's power. At the same time, it can prevent the giant dragon from releasing its energy. After reading the description of the dragon binding rope, Mo sure's brows relaxed. Being able to bind a dragon was indeed very impressive. However, the system gave him the dragon slaughtering saber and the dragon binding rope. Would he have to be enemies with the dragon clan in the future? But it didn't matter. The bloodthirsty demon dragon had long since become the enemy of all dragons. Thinking of this, Mo sure's heart actually gave birth to a trace of anticipation. He was looking forward to the day when he could fight against the entire dragon tribe with his own power. Of course, this was the bloodthirsty demon dragon's mentality. As for the current stage, Mo sure was still developing as wretchedly as possible. Before clashing with the Dragon Clan, he had to improve his strength as soon as possible. Following that, Mosher carefully searched the entire underground dragon cave a few more times, but he didn't find anything else. Only then did he teleport and arrive on the ground. Looking at his kill points, 654-1000, he only needed 300 more kill points to level up again. Where could he get the kill points? That was naturally the heavenly gold, heavenly wood, and heavenly water sects. Of course, he had to return to the flaming beginning continent first. Thinking of this with a thought, he took out the wormhole teleportation device. He pressed the teleportation button. In the next moment, his body turned into a blue and white ball of light and disappeared from the ancient dragon battlefield. Not long after he left, a 5-meter-long giant sword quickly descended from the sky. On the giant sword was the bearded Han Jianxing. He closed his eyes slightly and felt for a moment. Finally, he opened his eyes and looked at the ground. His gaze seemed to be able to penetrate the ground and look into the depths of the ground. After a moment, he slowly said, "As expected, you still couldn't escape this calamity." It turned out that Han Jianxing had long known that there was a giant dragon corpse underground. He also knew that there was a dragon vein in the dragon's corpse. Years ago, when he first came to the ancient dragon battlefield, he had brought his wife with him. At that time, he had discovered the dragon vein. In order to obtain the dragon vein, he had entered the underground dragon cavern alone. Because the underground dragon cavern was too dangerous, he had asked his wife to stay on the surface. But who would have thought that this parting would be an eternal farewell? When he was fighting the evil spirits in the underground dragon cavern, he suddenly had a bad premonition. He hurried back to his wife's side, only to find that she had already collapsed in a pool of blood. He was extremely sorrowful. After burying his wife, he stood guard here for a full 3 years. No one knew how he had spent these 3 years. 3 years later, he returned to the flaming beginning continent. He found the culprit who had killed his wife. He killed his way to the culprit's sect. In the end, 19 sects that were implicated in this matter were annihilated. Within these sects, there were a total of 32 Grand Desolate Master experts, but they were all killed by him alone. Since then, Han Jianxing's name had spread far and wide. But because of his wife's death, Han Jianxing was disheartened. Apart from raising his daughter, he no longer had the desire to reach a higher realm. As for the dragon vein that he had almost found, he no longer had the heart to look for it. Over the years, he had seen many experts in the ancient dragon battlefield who had died in the 4th district in search of the dragon vein. He had been watching coldly from the side. In his opinion, other than himself, no one else could take the dragon vein away. But now, Mosher had taken it away. Could it be that he was about to witness the rise of a legend in his life? Or was he going to witness the birth of a peerless demon? This kid didn't seem like a bad person. But when it came to killing people, his viciousness was absolutely shocking. Whether he became a legend or a devil, it was all up to him. As for whether he should stop him or not, Han Jianxing had no intention of doing so. From the moment his wife died, his heart had died. In this world, he cared about no one other than his daughter. Whether Han Jianxing became a legend or a demon, it had nothing to do with him. Thinking of this, he tilted the wine pot in his hand and spilled half a circle on the ground. Farewell. Then, he tilted his head back and gulped down a few more mouthfuls of wine. He leaped onto the giant sword and flew back to his wife's grave. At this time, Mosher had already returned to the first hunting island. The coordinates of his wormhole teleportation device were on the first hunting island. Chapter 429. Mosher returned to Hunting Island number 1. He planned to take a short rest here before heading to Skygold Sect, Skywood Sect, and Skywater Sect. Everyone on Hunting Island number 1 was excited to hear that Mosher had returned. They all came to welcome him. After Mosher rested for a night, Guojutao came to report early the next morning. In the base, there are more than 30,000 people who have broken through to the level of hunter. It is estimated that in 3 years at most, all the people in our base will be able to break through to become hunters. Guojutao said with exultation. When Mo brought these people from Earth, Mo was the only one who had become a hunter. Most of them were zombie hunters, and even grand hunters were rare, let alone scavenger hunters. In less than 2 years, there were more than 30,000 people who had become hunters. This was all thanks to the Dragon Palace. However, Mo still felt that it was a little too slow. He was now in contact with the top 100 forces in the 16 states of Ghost City. Among these forces, the weakest ones were hunters. Each force had at least 20 to 30 hunters. Large sects like the Skygold sect had hundreds of desolate hunters. In comparison, the power of Dragon Palace was too weak. It seemed that he had to strengthen the construction of Dragon Palace as soon as possible to improve the strength of the people in Dragon Palace. Thinking of improving strength, Mo could not help but think of the dragon blood he had obtained before. If he distributed the dragon blood to these people, would their strength be greatly improved? Of course, the dragon blood could not be directly absorbed by these people. The energy contained in the dragon blood was far from what these people could accept. Therefore, the dragon blood had to be diluted to the extent that their bodies could bear it. It should be known that before Mo had absorbed the dragon's blood, he had been injected with countless enhancers and consumed countless body modification fluids. Only then could he directly devour the dragon's blood. Thinking of this, Mo went to find Guojutao. He took out a bucket of dragon blood. Seeing that Mo filled the bucket with bright red liquid, Guojutao could not help but ask in confusion, "Mr. Mo? This is?" Mo did not answer directly. He took out a small bottle that was 5 centimeters tall and poured some water into it. 10,000 times diluted with water, or 100,000 times diluted with water. Distribute it to everyone. Guojutao was speechless. As it turned out, there was no accurate number. Mo added, "Before you distribute it to everyone, let's find a few people with higher realms and strength to test." Guojutao had never doubted Mo words. He immediately called a few people over and diluted the blood-red liquid. Then, he distributed it to several level 5 scavengers. After the level 5 hunters took it, they felt a hot energy flowing through their bodies. They were going to cultivate immediately. If they did not cultivate and circulate their energy, their bodies would most likely explode. On the second day, both of them leveled up 3 times. Furthermore, the effects of the medicine had yet to fully take effect. In the following days, the 2 of them improved extremely quickly. Seeing that the effects of the medicine were so good, everyone became excited. However, these 2 level 5 hunters needed to quickly circulate their energy so that their bodies would not explode. Therefore, the hunters would not be able to use it directly. Guojutao could only let people divide the medicine into several batches. One batch was diluted with water at a ratio of 10 times and given to the scavengers. The other batch was diluted with water at a ratio of 100 times and given to the grand hunters. And so on. Finally, Mo let Guojutao and the others, whose realms were fixed at level 1 scavengers, take the dragon blood as well. As a result, they broke through one after another. This made them very happy. They thought that their cultivation would be fixed at level 1 scavengers for the rest of their lives. They did not expect that there would be a day when they would break through. The blood-red liquid that Mr. Mo brought back for them was really amazing. Moreover, this kind of liquid was not a small bottle, but a plastic bucket of pure water which was filled to the brim. In other words, this liquid was enough for everyone in the base to use for a very long time. Could be said that their path of advancement in the future would be smooth sailing. How could this not make them excited? If they knew that there was not 1 bucket of this dragon blood, but 10 buckets, what would they think? In the next 5 days, more than 20 people in the Dragon Palace broke through and became scavengers. At this rate, the Dragon Palace could cultivate more than 100 scavengers within a month. It should be known that even a large sect like the Heavenly Gold sect would need at least 200 years to cultivate more than 100 scavengers. Now, the Dragon Palace could cultivate more than 100 scavengers within a month. This speed was really exaggerated. Of course, Mo also gave Happy dragon blood. However, Happy's body was like a rock and could not absorb the dragon blood at all. This made Mo Sure speechless. Was it so difficult to become an oracle? While everyone in the base was excited about being able to quickly improve their strength, an uninvited guest came. This person was none other than the female manager of the 10th Hunting Island. When Mo Sure went to the 10th Hunting Ground previously, he had seen this person in the hall of the 10th Hunting Island. Moreover, this person was not weak. She was a level 7 scavenger. This female manager was slightly plump. She had shoulder-length hair. The way she walked was like a penguin, swaying from side to side. She entered the first hunting island. While looking around, she secretly estimated the strength of the first hunting island. In her opinion, the strength of Hunting Island number 1 was far inferior to that of Hunting Island number 10. However, after entering the first hunting island, she found that it was just an old impression. The current Hunting Island number 1 had changed a lot compared to before. Especially in the first hunting island, there were more than 30 people who were training. Their auras had reached the level of scavengers. A poor place like the first hunting island could produce scavengers. Moreover, there were so many of them in one go. This really surprised her a little. However, she soon put away her surprise. She came with a mission today. Even if there were 200 scavengers on the first hunting island, she had to complete the mission, not to mention that there were more than 20 scavengers on the first hunting island. Thinking of this, she straightened her plump back. She came to the workshop where Mo Sure was. She glanced around the workshop and finally fixed her eyes on Mo Sure. She looked Mo Sure up and down. She was a little surprised. The owner of the first hunting island was a little young. The two did not exchange any pleasantries. The woman said directly, "You are the owner of the first hunting island, right?" Mo Sure nodded. The woman continued, "We suspect that you are related to the murder of the Heavenly Gold Sect disciple, Buffon. Please come with me to assist in the investigation." You're tuning in to the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.